It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. This game of chess becomes more and more interesting as time goes by. While the outside world was discussing the Cape of Good Hope, the southernmost tip of Africa, which had always been ignored, there was news about a massacre in a town in East London, a colony of the British Empire. Zundert, the Netherlands. Everyone come and listen. This is the newspaper I just got. If you want to listen, come quickly. And remember to pay after you finish listening. What are you looking at? Tell me quickly, what is it talking about? Oh, it's great that you live in the present. The Netherlands is so good now, with stable employment. Especially in education, the universal 9-year compulsory education. This huge project has been fully launched, and it is being implemented in an orderly manner. You are so lucky. Hey, old man, do you still want to listen? Yes, 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 of course. Young man, can you respect me, an old man? You are so rude. Huh? You call yourself an old man? How many people here don't know that you, Sykes, have been wandering the streets of Amsterdam for 10 years since you came back from the Cape of Good Hope? You have never been in the office for more than a month, and you can change 20 jobs a year. Also, he likes gambling. Everyone, please judge. My father, as a Protestant pastor, sympathizes with him. He has only known him for less than half a year, but he has been defrauded of more than 1,000 Dutch guilders, and the number of times is more than 5 times. Do you think that an old man like you deserves my respect? Vincent, please stop talking about Sykes, okay? Let's continue with the topic just now. What happened over the Cape of Good Hope? That's right, let's continue talking about the report in the newspaper just now. So much nonsense in a square in the city center. A group of idle old people in ordinary clothes are surrounding a 9-year-old child. This child is not afraid of strangers. He has a handsome face and looks impatient, but his eyes are wandering around. If it weren't for his small stature, no one would believe that he is just a half-grown child. Humph, it's always like this. Sure enough, the one who borrows money is the eldest. This child was born in 1853 in the parsonage in the market center of Zundert, Brabant province in the south of the Netherlands. His birthday is also the anniversary of his brother's death. In mid-1859, because of his loneliness since childhood, he was sent to the Zundert City Kilometer School by his father Theodorus. Later, the terrible learning environment made him more and more rebellious, and finally dropped out of school at the end of October 1861, when he was only 9 years old. However, what made him helpless was that the Netherlands actually promulgated a new education law in December 1861, stipulating that the Netherlands universalizes 9 years of compulsory education, and all young people must complete 9 years of education before they can enter society. So this year, he went back to Zundert City Public School, so he was dissatisfied with the old man Sykes who deliberately mentioned this matter just now. However, he was a little devil, so he naturally would not offend the public, so he chose to retreat, but seeing Sykes's proud look, he secretly made a decision in his heart that he must retaliate against the other party. But for now, helping these illiterate old men solve their problems is the best way for him to earn some pocket money after class. Because the new education law stipulates that schools will have 2 days off every week. As a rebellious boy, he naturally won't stay at home, so this square has become his place to earn pocket money. He can earn 2 Dutch guilders a day by reading newspapers to a group of illiterate Dutch veterans and participating in their comments every week. He is naturally happy to get the money. The newspaper said that since 1652, some of our Dutch people have immigrated to the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa. In 1795 and 1806, the British, jealous of the importance of this location, defeated the Dutch there and occupied the Cape of Good Hope colony twice. Naturally, our kingdom of the Netherlands was dissatisfied, so we had a dispute with Britain. However, the British were assisted by God. With the astonishing rise of Napoleon I in Europe, the Netherlands fell soon, so Britain occupied there openly. The Dutch in the Cape of Good Hope, without support, had no choice but to accept the strong rule of Britain. It was not until the Vienna Peace Conference in Austria from 1814 to 1815 that the British privately asked the current Dutch royal family for this place, on the condition that Nassau-Orange was formally nominated as the new Dutch royal family and that Britain was willing to pay £6 million in compensation. They legitimately took the sovereignty of the Cape of Good Hope from New Holland and began to rule it. At this time, the British changed the name of the city at the Cape of Good Hope to Cape Town in order to deepen their influence and slowly erase the memory of the Netherlands. The child and others did not notice that the old man who was devalued by him showed a look of painful memories after hearing this, but he covered it up quickly, so no one noticed. In 1836, a new ethnic group called the Boers was formed by the Dutch, French and Germans. They were dissatisfied with British rule and began to leave the Cape Colony collectively. Led by the militia commander Andreas Pretorius, they established colonies such as the Lydenburg Republic and the Wimberg Republic in the northern interior. In the end, because they were afraid of being defeated by the British one by one, these colonies merged into a republic, and its name was the Transvaal Republic. However, another part of the De Boers established the Natalia Republic in the east of the Transvaal Republic. However, after being destroyed by the British, these people migrated eastwards. In the south near the Transvaal Republic and the northwest of the Kingdom of Basutoland and the Kingdom of Zulu, they relied on the three countries to establish the Republic of Orange Free State. This is the current situation in southern Africa. The British are the only superpower there, the Transvaal Republic is second, and the third is the Kingdom of Zulu, the Republic of Orange Free State, and the Kingdom of Basutoland. However, today's newspapers say that the British want to break this pattern and even want to persuade the Zulu Kingdom to go to war with the Republic of Transvaal. However, they did not expect that the representatives sent by Governor Shepstone were completely wiped out in East London, a city in the east of the British colony. Not a single British person in the entire small town died under the Zulus' tactics. The report finally said that the Queen of England has decided to send troops to carry out a bloody suppression of the Zulu kingdom in order to avenge the blood feud of 1,000 British people. Bang, bang, bang. Sykes's crutches suddenly fell to the ground, and seeing the strange eyes looking at him, Sykes shrugged helplessly. I can't help it. I'm 65 years old this year. It's normal to have weak hands. Vincent, please continue, you big-headed ghost. Sykes, I know you have no money, but wait. I want to hear your story at the Cape of Good Hope 30 years ago. I remember there was a man called you Andres. Could it be that you have the same surname as the leader of the Cape of Good Hope? You are not a brother of him. Sykes's face changed drastically, but this time he was caught by Vincent. He was shocked and his mind was racing. At the same time, he had strange ideas. Sykes didn't know that he had been stared at by him, and he hurriedly agreed, Okay, I don't feel well today. I will go back to rest first. Alice, I'm old, and I can't hold the crutches steadily. Vincent sneered in his heart. I told you to pretend. Your handle has fallen into my hands. Just wait for me to slowly explore the value of you. On March 3, 1862, just as Britain had begun to mobilize its regular army and was preparing to go south to the Atlantic Ocean to southern Africa to attack the Zulu Kingdom, Napier III of the French Empire, William I of the Kingdom of Prussia, and William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands held the first tripartite agreement meeting in Luxembourg. The heads of state of the three countries issued a statement warning Britain of its dissatisfaction with the rights violations of immigrants from the three countries in southern Africa in recent years. At the same time, the three countries expressed their support for the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Republic. These support measures include providing 100,000 of the latest firearms and related ammunition. In addition, the three countries will send observation teams to the two countries, and will regularly release reports every 6 months on the views of the people of the two countries on Britain and Britain's measures towards the two countries, and then evaluate the corresponding degree of help needed by the three countries. At the same time, the three countries stated that they would form a joint fleet to conduct a joint cruise in the Indian Ocean every 6 months. Specific measures will be released on a selected day. Finally, the three countries invited Britain to negotiate with the Zulu Kingdom to resolve the recent conflicts between the two countries and create a peaceful African environment. The three countries were willing to provide any help to support the peace talks between the two countries. When the news reached southern Africa, the people of the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Republic cheered and straightened their backs. At this moment, they seemed to feel that the British were not so scared. Although the Zulu Kingdom in the east was not so relaxed, it also felt that with the statements of these countries, the British should not dare to be too presumptuous. In short, Except for the British people where Shepstone was dissatisfied, the statements of the three countries were warmly welcomed throughout southern Africa. However, although Buckingham Palace expressed dissatisfaction with the statements of the three countries, even Foreign Secretary John Russell stood up and accused the three countries of not sympathizing with the deaths of thousands of British people, but caring about the lives of aliens. This was a betrayal of the white people in Europe, and therefore condemned the three countries. The three countries were naturally unwilling to be outdone, and dug out the old account books, accusing the British of burning, killing and looting the Boers, including the immigrants of the three countries, in southern Africa, and making the people live an inhuman life abroad like herding sheep. As the evidence of the three countries was released, it was found that there were people from all countries except the British, especially in Northern Europe including Sweden, and even Belgium, where many people died at the hands of the British. Therefore, the four candidates in the general election also stood up to condemn Britain in order to win the support of the people. This made William IV shake his head. Nationalism is indeed the easiest way to get votes, no matter what era it is. This game of chess is getting more and more interesting. The Child. Chapter 77. I drew a prison. The prisoner is British. In William IV's previous life, the British fought 2 wars with the Boers, and from then on they were no longer able to expand their colonies around the world. They were considered to have started to go downhill from their peak, but that was in the 1880s, after Africa was almost completely divided. William IV did not want Britain to end its expansion so quickly. However, the Netherlands needed Britain to free up some of its share. The Boers were a character that could break the teeth of the British. William IV activated and released them early, naturally because of Alaska, the reason why the Russian Empire left Kalimantan Island, in order to divert the dissatisfaction of the British. Now, we can only wish the Zulu Kingdom and Britain good luck. However, the era of European and American colonialism in Africa has not yet arrived. Letting Britain enter in advance and be dragged down by the Boers will have an impact on the later consolidation of the African colonies of Britain, France and other countries. Durban, the capital of the Zulu Kingdom in southern Africa. Kaziaweyo is an insightful politician. In the struggle, he gradually realized the two-faced policy of the cunning British. When he saw that the most dangerous enemy of the Zulu Kingdom was no longer the Boers but the British colonists, he gave up the traditional policy of uniting with Britain to oppose the Boers. They understood that the British had been using delaying tactics to help the Zulu Kingdom demand the return of the lost land by the Transvaal Republic for some time. He now understood better what he should do. In particular, after the Boers of the Transvaal Republic massacred nearly 1,000 British people in the small town of East London, this has helped him decide his future position. He has a sarcastic thought. He has also dealt with the British for many years, and naturally foresaw the British's anger. No matter how much he explains, it is useless, because the British people believe that life is the most noble in the world. Kaziaweyo thought sarcastically. Shepstone is now the highest British official in Africa. The British in southern Africa, led by him, are deeply afraid that the increasingly powerful Zulu Kingdom and the Transvaal Republic will become the inspiration for the major colonies in southern Africa, causing Britain to face greater resistance in the annexation process. After annexing the Republic of Natalia, it became their established policy to eliminate the remaining 3 countries. So under the guidance of telegrams sent from London, England, asking him to preside over British Southern Africa, he led the British Army to formulate an invasion plan and increase reinforcements from the country. On March 4, 1862, Shepstone, the governor of the British Cape Town colony, submitted an ultimatum, demanding that the Zulu Kingdom must disarm within 20 days, accept the rule of the British Governor-General Shepstone, and allow British missionaries to preach freely in the Zulu Kingdom. Obviously, accepting these demands is equivalent to the Zulu Kingdom giving up its national independence. How could Kaziaweyo, who wanted to be the lord of the revival of the Zulu Kingdom, agree to it? So Kaziaweyo rejected these rude requests without hesitation. At the same time, his heart sank slightly, because he didn't feel it before, but now when facing the threat of the British, he felt the pressure was very great. At the same time, he also admired the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State Republic, which had faced direct pressure from the British in the past. You know, these 2 countries have been facing such a situation every day for more than 10 years. Before the final ultimatum, the British had already drawn their swords and deployed tens of thousands of troops and artillery along the Tugela River, and there were also indigenous troops composed of native Africans and Natal blocking the way. Kaziaweyo actively prepared for war and contacted the other 2 parties at the same time. He assembled 30,000 troops of the Zulu kingdom south of the capital Durban, and the remaining thousands of people were deployed near Durban to prevent the British from landing along the coast and occupying Durban. On March 6, 1862, 11,000 British troops, under the command of Commander Lanteng, crossed the Tugela River and invaded the Zulu kingdom in 3 ways. Only Ulundi, the capital of the southern province of the Zulu kingdom, was left. At this time, Kazihiweyo faced the attack of the British army that took the initiative, and he naturally no longer had any illusions. So he personally commanded the Zulu army and concentrated superior forces to attack the British army in the middle first. On March 8, Kazihiweyo quietly transferred the main force to Isandlwana. Because the British army lost more than they won in wars all over the world, they were arrogant and underestimated the enemy, and their defenses were lax. He had analyzed this specifically and had a long-standing experience. When night fell on the evening of March 8, he divided his troops into 2 groups, attacking from the front and back, and launched a surprise attack. The tall black Zulu warriors rushed forward like a tide, rushing towards the British army, so hundreds of thousands of British people in front of them fell down in the rain of bullets fired by the guns purchased from the Netherlands by the Zulu kingdom. Not only that, in front of the frightened British army, the Zulu army, which was already known for its barbarity, shouted wildly, shouting the name of the Zulu king, Prussia, and rushed to the British barracks, fighting the British army in close combat. Although the British were also tall, they were far less powerful than the Zulu soldiers, so a hand-to-hand fight took place. However, the British were one-sidedly pushed to the ground by the Zulus, and the kind of people who were killed by a spear. In this way, 1,800 British regular troops were killed, and 900 of their native troops were also killed. In this battle alone, the British army lost 2,700 people, and the Zulu kingdom lost only 1,200 people. The Zulu army won a great victory and seized more than 2,000 British guns and 500,000 bullets. The Zulu army won a great victory. This is the first time since European colonists came to Africa that an African native kingdom has achieved a great victory in a single action. It is also the most serious loss suffered by the British army since it helped the Ottoman Turkey to deal with Tsarist Russia in the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856. Shepstone's plan for a quick victory suffered a major setback. The British army was forced to quickly withdraw the left wing of the army, and the right wing was besieged in Eshau. In the face of victory, many generals of the Zulu kingdom were overwhelmed by the victory in front of them. They all put forward overly risky propositions, but they were rejected by Kazihiweyo. Because he fully estimated the firepower advantage of the British, he disagreed with their proposal and continued to take a frontal attack on the British. Instead, to everyone's surprise, he ordered the Dutch advisor to dig trenches to defend himself, and at the same time, he carried out a long-term siege on the British who had the same idea as him, besieged the points and attacked the reinforcements, cut off the traffic, and made these British fall in Eshau without attack. The Dutch advisor explained that this tactic was extremely difficult for the British army, which was facing the rainy season. After all, with the arrival of spring, snakes and insects here are out day and night. The British are not as skilled as the Zulus in dealing with these things, which is undoubtedly fatal to the British army. So, in the end, after 5 days of siege, the British army finally chose to surrender with 3,500 people killed in battle and 1,800 people escaped. The surrender of these 3,000 British soldiers immediately caused a sensation in southern Africa. With the transmission of telegrams and the rapid sailing of the 6th-level battleships at sea, the news spread rapidly across the world's oceans like a stone thrown into the waters of the Indian Ocean, causing huge waves and splashes. Public opinion was once again connected to the topic of southern Africa a week ago. Newspapers were reporting like mushrooms after rain. Britain was bullied by the natives again. Haspet Fen said with a smile, regarding the battle between Britain and the Zulu kingdom in Isandlwana, 11,000 British soldiers were defeated so thoroughly in front of 30,000 native soldiers of the Zulu kingdom. This is a great irony for the British army, which has always boasted that its military is the best in Europe. It was right for Kazihiweyo, the actual ruler of the Zulu kingdom, not to pursue the victory. Many experts believe that the local situation is far more complicated than what we see now. Kazihiweyo is more than cautious in tactics, but it is still unknown whether he lacks courage. He dared not take advantage of the British army's defeat and shock to attack the natal colony. Wouldn't it be better to transfer the domestic front of the Zulu kingdom to the external front of the British colony? Van Perron, a special expert of the European Times, believes that it is a pity. After all, the backward primitive military system of the Zulu kingdom also caused great difficulties for Kajueo. The Zulu army traditionally had no logistics system for supplying food and grass, and its supplies were almost entirely dependent on seizing the enemy's spoils. Because this war was actually carried out on the mainland, livestock and non-combatants had been transferred, tens of thousands of troops were concentrated in one area, and food was absolutely in short supply. He speculated that this was also an important reason why Kajueo was able to successfully enter the British colony. He speculated that Kajueo was likely eager to make peace with Britain. He wanted to take advantage of the British's failure in the first battle to negotiate with the British and sign a contract that was beneficial to them, so that the Zulu kingdom could be separated from the war. But what he didn't expect was that the British would never give up. He didn't understand the European political system. No European politician dared to defend the death of thousands of people. Everyone thought that Britain should negotiate peace with the other side at this time. This was a shame for the British aristocracy, who had always been known for their chivalry. What's more, the object of their bowing was the black indigenous people they always looked down upon. Losing the war had already made Britain's political situation unstable. If they agreed to negotiate now, wouldn't it be a direct proof that the Whig Party couldn't beat this indigenous country during its time in power? They would be labeled in the future. Thorbecke nodded, "The British will not back down, Your Majesty. If the British completely move away from Alaska, our goal will be achieved. However, Your Majesty's plan to divert the trouble to the west has been successful. But if our Zulu kingdom can't stand the pressure, will it betray us?" In the Privy Council meeting room, following the Prime Minister's words, everyone had such doubts. Of course not. William Ivey had not answered yet, and the Dutch International Intelligence Director Mackay Shawn next to him said at this time, "Because Your Majesty has asked the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State to prepare to join the dispute with the British. In this way, with the participation of the two countries, the Zulu kingdom will go to war with Britain, and the Transvaal Republic and Orange will begin to support it." At this time, France, Prussia and the Netherlands took the opportunity to intervene in the situation with the largest proportion of immigrants from the three countries among the Boers. "Britain will be caught in a dilemma here, Your Majesty. If this continues, the British will seem to be facing a dilemma in both diplomacy and military affairs." William Ivey looked at Hespet van with a little pride on his face and said, "So, I wanted to take the opportunity to use France and Pula as a backdrop to trap Britain in the prison I drew for them in Africa, to endorse our next step." Next step? Your Majesty has already thought of the Netherlands' next move? Chapter 78. How could it be this? What? Shepstone commanded a mixed force of 10,000 regular troops and 1,000 native troops, but he was defeated in the attack on the Zulu kingdom. Less than 2,000 people escaped back to the British colony. Except for 4,300 people who were captured, all the others died in the war. Shepstone is such a waste. It's a pity that we arranged such a lucrative job for him. Now he has caused us so much trouble. Queen Victoria now wants to kill Shepstone. Such a good governor of the Cape of Good Hope has done this. Doesn't this give those who are dissatisfied with the current government cabinet and the royal family an excuse to expel him and attack them? Now things are getting more and more confusing. Russell and Lord Viscount, how can the Zulu kingdom be so bold as to challenge Britain? What exactly is it going to do? Aren't they afraid of arousing our anger and causing the whole of Britain to use all its national strength to directly wipe out all their citizens from the entire world? The 43-year-old Queen Victoria, who had given birth to 9 children, was slightly plump, so when she angrily slapped the table hard, she brought a touch of charm, and her round face flushed with anger. She was dizzy during this period of time. The civil strife in Belgium, the alliance between France, the Netherlands and Prussia, and the territorial trade between the Netherlands and Russia had forced her to stand up and deal with these challenges less than 3 months after losing her husband. These had already made her dissatisfied, but now even a small indigenous country dared to declare war on the Great British Empire. All the British, including her, had already burst out the anger that had been suppressed during this period of time at this moment. So she agreed to Shepstone's attack at that time, but in just less than 10 days, the British army of 11,000 soldiers was easily killed as if they were sent to be slaughtered. Only 2 out of 10 survived, which was a shame for the British Empire. What also made her dissatisfied was that other European countries treated the disastrous defeat suffered by Britain in southern Africa with a mocking tone in the news reports of various countries. This was inconsistent with the policy of peace with Europe that Queen Victoria had been promoting. This was another blow to her. She absolutely did not want to see a connected and united European alliance, because this was the biggest threat and nightmare for the British Isles, which were isolated overseas. In short, she felt a headache when she thought about these things now. Now thinking about what happened recently, it seems that William IV has a lot to do with it, so as a result, her previous good impression of the Netherlands has also decreased. As Her Majesty the Queen of the British Empire, Queen Victoria was just complaining. She thought for a moment, looked at the Secretary of Defense William Mitt next to her, and said, "How is our military strength in southern Africa now?" Mitt had already memorized this by heart. Hearing Queen Victoria's question, he responded with a serious look on his face. Originally there were 15,000 regular troops and 3,000 indigenous troops. Now there are only 5,000 left and about 2,000 who escaped, a total of 7,000 regular troops, plus 2,000 indigenous troops, a total of 9,000 troops. Where are the indigenous troops of the Zulu kingdom? Hearing the Queen's question, Mitt sighed. The Zulu kingdom lost less than 1,500 people in this battle. At this point, the Queen, Prime Minister Palmerston, and Foreign Secretary Russell all looked unhappy. He silently mourned for his fellow soldiers in the army, and continued to sigh. The Zulu kingdom has an army of 30,000 people, all of whom participated in the war this time. That is, with a ratio of 1 to 3, we lost the war. Queen Victoria's face finally looked better after hearing the comparison of the number of people participating in the war. Fortunately, it was 1 to 3, and it was not too embarrassing to lose. However, when she thought about the fact that southern Africa had lost half of its military strength in an instant, her anger did not diminish at all. But she was helpless, because after a slight change of mind, she thought of the mood of the British people. What the British people now hope most is to win a big victory to restore their national prestige and prevent the British from being laughed at by European countries. Originally, in the past few years, the British were envied, flattered, and treated with caution when walking on the soil of European countries. Now, with the feedback she received, Europeans began to no longer respect the British as before, and have been demoted to an equal position. If the incident in the Zulu kingdom is not handled properly, the government may fall, and our royal family will also suffer a huge risk of reputation damage. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you here are the most far-sighted people in our British Empire. Now it's time for you to serve me and the country. Tell us what you think. Your Majesty, I think there is something strange about this incident. Russell said with a gloomy face. The Zulu kingdom actually killed all the negotiators when we sent people to negotiate with them, and even chose to massacre the city. This is such a contradictory thing. It's unreasonable and full of contradictions. What do you mean? The angry Queen Victoria was suddenly awakened and found something wrong. Yes, the Zulu kingdom had always been respectful to Britain before, fearing that Britain would destroy them. Now, it is amazingly attacking Britain. This is really an incredible move. Your Majesty, I think there must be something inside here, and we don't know the inside story. John Russell, many people are dissatisfied with us. Maybe our opponents will provoke the Zulu kingdom to challenge the authority of the British Empire. It is not impossible. Sniff. Sniff. Everyone was shocked by Russell's idea. A country has made a secret move against Britain? Is this possible? Everyone knows that Britain is the most powerful country in the world. Which country dares to be so presumptuous and provoke Britain? Isn't that the rhythm of seeking death? Only an indigenous kingdom like the Zulu kingdom would do such a thing. How dare European countries do it? So these questions were put in front of Russell. But he replied, one country naturally dares not, but what if it is 3 countries? Hearing this, everyone, including Queen Victoria, was shocked by his speculation. Few of the tripartite alliance? They actually cooperated to this extent. Queen Victoria asked with a gloomy face. But who is Russell? He is a famous British politician who once served as the British Prime Minister. He, Palmerston, Stanley and Peel of the Tory party are known as the 4 Kings of Britain. They are the trendsetters of British politics in the past 30 years. They influenced the development path of Britain. Even Queen Victoria can only learn politics from them. These 4 people can be called her real mentors. Russell's political sensitivity is famous. Viscount Palmerston said slowly at this time, nothing is impossible in this world. Even a figure like Napoleon I was defeated, not to mention that a contract has been signed in black and white. Your Majesty, let's prepare as soon as possible. These three countries will be a challenge for Britain in the next period of time. I don't know, how is the Viscount going to deal with it? Palmerston did not answer, but gave the opportunity to Russell next to him. Russell understood, Britain's balance of power diplomacy will not change. This has been the basis of the Tories and Whigs' foreign policy for decades, and we should naturally continue to uphold it. However, since these three countries have formed an alliance, in order to balance them, we in Britain can also let another alliance deal with them, fighting poison with poison, and continue to balance the power on the European continent. Then I wonder who the balance of power target is, Sir Russell? You know, these three countries are quite powerful. The speaker was Defense Secretary Mitt. Russell asked, how is Austria? Mitt, Austria is naturally good, but it is better than the lower ones and not as good as the upper ones. Austria is stronger than Prussia, but France is slightly better. Russell smiled and said, then add Italy, which has almost unified the Apennine Peninsula since the Kingdom of Sardinia changed its name this year with the support of our British Empire. It remains to be seen how strong Italy is, but I estimate that it should not be as good as Prussia. But don't forget, Sir Russell, Italy and Austria are still arguing over Venice. Based on my many years of experience in the army, I estimate that the Kingdom of Italy should be about the same strength as the Netherlands. If you want to suppress this tripartite agreement, you still need a country that can suppress France. Hearing this, Russell's eyes flashed fiercely, and he said the name of the third country in a shocking way. Everyone present was shocked after hearing it. How could it be it? Chapter 79. The wind is blowing in South Africa. Britain. On March 14, 1862, the British Cabinet government announced that, from that day on, 30,000 troops would be sent from the British Isles to support the Cape of Good Hope. At the same time, Shepstone's position as governor was removed, and the nobleman Jobbin, who had served as a major general in the army, was appointed as the new governor. It is expected that all the dispatch work will be completed before the end of March. Many people think that it is only a matter of time. After all, Shepstone has made the whole of Britain lose face, and such a punishment is the best result to appease the public anger. In addition, the British Empire announced a shocking news that it will form an alliance with Italy and Austria. Britain will support Austria and Italy in peaceful negotiations to resolve the Venice issue. At the same time, the three countries will cooperate beyond friendship in the Mediterranean. At the same time, Britain also supports Austria to continue its leadership in the German Confederation. This alliance is speculated to be used to balance the tripartite alliance of France, Prussia and the Netherlands. Obviously, Britain feels threatened. With the emergence of this news, European countries are even more turbulent. Tsarist Russian Empire, St. Petersburg Palace. What the hell is Britain doing? It actually came up with such a move. It is obvious that it cannot bear the three-nation agreement of France, the Netherlands and Prussia, and wants to break the thread of the three countries to Britain. However, with this move, the huge Central and Western Europe are actually composed of almost four parts: Britain, Italy, Austria and the Netherlands, Prussia, and France. In addition, there are Sweden and Denmark in Northern Europe and Spain and Portugal in Southern Europe. Alexander I thought of the situation of the Russian Empire with some worry. Britain is using the same old trick again, and still wants the developed European continent to fight first. She is preparing to ignite the dispute between Austria and Italy, especially between Prussia and Austria. Although this is a common move, it is very useful. Victoria, although we can't get married, relying on our first love of spiritual appreciation, I am a little curious about what you think now. I don't believe that you will forget me and forget the Russian Empire outside the chessboard you and Viscount Palmerston played. However, the recent actions of the Netherlands have made me somewhat interested. Compared with William I like the little guy William IV more. It's a pity that the Netherlands is not strong enough now, otherwise it would be a good choice for Tsarist Russia to build an equal alliance with the Netherlands. However, with the establishment of influence by the Netherlands on the Alaska Peninsula and the exclave of Tsarist Russia on the island of Kalimantan, the Russian Empire can create some potential threats to Britain in the Pacific. I am very grateful for the help of the Netherlands. It seems that this time Tsarist Russia owes the Netherlands a favor. Remember it first and pay it back later. What? The British Empire, the Kingdom of Austria and the Kingdom of Italy are preparing to form an alliance. Bismarck frowned slightly. The British actually chose not to watch the development of the European situation? This is not like their usual style. Old Moltke was also very puzzled. William I said distressedly, In this way, we may face those small countries in the German Confederation that were about to turn to us, and waver in the decision that we have just made. The reputation of Britain is too big. William, I regretted it a little. Did we make a mistake in the tripartite agreement with the Netherlands and France? Shouldn't we join the tripartite agreement in the first place? Because so far, it seems that what we are going to get does not seem to exist. Your Majesty, this is a taboo. Don't retreat after doing it. This is a taboo. Bismarck retorted, we are enjoying the benefits now. Seeing William I's confusion and other people's curiosity, Bismarck explained, don't forget, because of this agreement, France, which we have always been wary of, has now become an ally. This allows us to concentrate on dealing with Austria's influence in the German Confederation. The Netherlands can also attract the attention of European countries for us, and we can develop quietly. Why not do it? Amsterdam, Netherlands. Bill Charlie said, Your Majesty, the British seem to have some doubts. I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that a British group this time will pose a threat to us? William IV interrupted him and calmly opened the latest news about Southern Africa. William IV slowly flipped through it and said, What is the current situation in Belgium? Bill Charlie was stunned when he saw that William IV did not answer him, but then he was relieved. His Majesty has always had such wild and unrestrained thinking, and he has become accustomed to it. The four of them have started their final sprint. Currently, Merlin from the French-speaking region is in the lead, followed by Orbán, Danadang in third, and Biden fourth. He closed a copy of the European Times newspaper he had just read, looked up, and stared sharply at the Dutch International Intelligence Director Mackay Sean next to him, and ordered, prepare for the first wave of campaign support. I want to see Orbán's reputation stinking tomorrow. Mackay Sean nodded and replied with a little excitement, yes. William IV turned to Bill Charlie and said, Danadang has been too low-key recently. Tell him to be more high-profile. I have given him a chance. If he doesn't seize it, Bite will be his nightmare. Bill Charlie nodded heavily. Because he knew that the campaign support that had been prepared long ago was a huge wave, and the general election in Belgium now would be a test product for the Netherlands. While everyone was staring at the Franco-Prussian alliance, I was developing Belgium. While everyone was focusing on Belgium, the Netherlands had already completed a record-breaking territorial exchange deal with Russia. At this time, when the world was amazed at our deal with Russia, especially when Britain was dissatisfied with its strategic position, I pulled South Africa out, forcing Britain to focus on it. William IV confidently said to the two intelligence chiefs he trusted, now that thousands of people have died in Britain, they are panicking. If they knew that this was just an appetizer and the main course was still to come. When the main course is served, by then, let's see how much energy they can put on us. Next, you have to. Southern Africa. As the Zulu kingdom became famous because of the First World War, it has recently become the focus of various countries. At the same time, the British troops in the Cape of Good Hope in Cape Town, which served as a foil, have also become a joke. However, will things be just that simple? On March 25, 1862, Jobbin, the new British governor stationed in the Cape of Good Hope, went to the Transvaal Republic to lobby them to accept British rule. Due to the financial difficulties caused by the war with the Zulu kingdom for many years in the past few years, and the large-scale conflict with the Zulu kingdom in the east, Jobbin finally got an answer that the other party considered. However, this has made Jobbin get a good start, enough to temporarily report to London. However, as the number of British troops gradually increased from the sea landing in Cape Town, the British here began to become more and more presumptuous, and even in the British colonies, there was a situation of bullying the Boers. This made the Transvaal Republic very dissatisfied, and directly told Jobbin that if they did not change this situation, the Transvaal Republic would not accept any surrender from the UK. The Transvaal Republic's public statement did not bring about the improvement of the British. On the contrary, the local media reported more incidents of Boer women being raped, and the frequency was rising rapidly. This caused the relationship between the two places to decline sharply. However, when it came to March 27, Jobbin, a soldier, was indifferent. Why? Because with the 20,000 troops sent by the local army, the remaining 10,000 will arrive within 5 days. At this time, the pride of the British officer made him lose his eyes. He also chose to remain indifferent to the request of the Transvaal Republic to withdraw. Instead of improving the living conditions of the lower-class Boers, increasing investment, and improving local finance, economy, and political life, he allowed British merchants and consortiums to invest in land and collect some taxes from the Boers out of thin air, which caused anxiety and dissatisfaction among the British Boer people. On March 28, 1862, when the British local army landed 30,000 troops, the Transvaal Republic issued a statement to the Boers, expressing its willingness to accept them from the British colonies to settle in the Transvaal Republic and oppose the brutal rule of Britain. With the issuance of this statement, the British were dissatisfied. Jobbin immediately mobilized 20,000 troops and quickly deployed them to Kimberley. This threatened the security of the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State Republic. The Transvaal and Orange, together with the Boers in the British colonies, naturally did not want to be threatened. So they united to express their opposition to British rule. The war was about to break out, and the world's attention was once again here. The Zulu Kingdom even assembled its military forces next to the Orange Free State and faced Cape Town in the south. Up to now, Britain itself has less than 40,000 troops. The other former enemies of the Transvaal Republic, the Orange Free State Republic, and the Zulu Kingdom have now become anti-British allies, with an army of more than 60,000, a gap of 0.5 times. However, many people believe that in front of the elite troops of the local regular army, these parties are just local dogs. Even if they have half the military strength, they are enough to deal with the other side. Even many European countries are not optimistic about them, thinking that it is just a question of whether the British will win easily or with difficulty. On March 29, the Boers in the British colonies took advantage of the 20,000 main British troops to head to East London, a small border town of the Zulu Kingdom. When another 10,000 British troops entered Kimberley, the 50,000 civilian Boers in Cape Town quickly defeated the remaining 3,000 British troops. It took only 3 days to occupy the entire Cape Town and the Cape of Good Hope, and announced support for the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State Republic. Chapter 1. Please vote if you have votes, and click to collect you if you think it's okay after reading it. Chapter 80. Is the occupation of Cape Town really no joke? In the early stages of the war in the Transvaal Republic, except for Cape Town, the Boers took the offensive and defeated the British many times. The Boer army used scattered formations when attacking, shot accurately, and was good at using terrain to build field fortifications. The British adopted a clumsy dense formation, neither maneuvering nor camouflaging during combat, resulting in heavy casualties. On March 29, 1862, the Boer army overcame the defense of the British army and pushed them back 100 kilometers, completely eliminating them from the territory of the Orange Free State. In just one day, the Boer army captured the cities of Newcastle and Glencoe, and surrounded Ladysmith and Mafeking. In the end, on April Fool's Day, April 1st, it brought Britain a story that was not a fool's story, that is, Kimberley, the garrison of the Transvaal Republic attacked by 30,000 people, was captured by the Boers, and the British collapsed rapidly. On April 2nd, on the three fronts of Colenso, Stromberg and Magersfontein, the Boer army repelled the siege of the British troops, and the British army suffered heavy losses. Afterwards, the Boer army used the main force to besiege the castle and disperse the troops, which greatly slowed down the offensive ability to attack the British colonies, and the death caused the loss of momentum, which gave Britain a respite, causing the main force to fail to attack the eastern coast directly, resulting in the opening of the channel connecting to Cape Town, and completely bordering the Boers in Cape Town. As a result, a group of more than 400,000 Boers was formed. For Britain, South Africa at this time had reached the most dangerous moment, because Cape Town was also occupied. The Boer military and civilian team there, which was not even a miscellaneous brand, completely controlled Cape Town. In the battle for Cape Town, the British army still used the old tactics, that is, lining up in a dense formation and shooting at the commander's command. The Boers were brave and good at fighting, mobile and flexible, and adopted the tactics of splitting and encircling, besieging and attacking reinforcements, which actually made these irregular Boers defeat the 3,000 British troops who stayed behind. The remaining British army suffered heavy casualties, with more than 2,000 deaths, and the remaining 1,000 were forced to surrender. Their new governor, Jobbin, surrendered with them. In order to save his life, Jobbin finally forced to agree to negotiate peace. The news of the British army's defeat was sent back to the country. Although Palmerston was not asked to resign, their reputation plummeted, and after signing the contract, they withdrew all the troops from the front line. In the public opinion, the Tory party temporarily led the ruling Whig party by 6 percentage points, 53% and 47% respectively. In the end, the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State suddenly got a chance to breathe, because they knew that Jobbin, with 50,000 troops, would never give up his ambitions against them. This half-month war was later called the First Boer War by European countries. Its occurrence also let Europe know that Britain's continuous bad luck and being beaten without temper has made Europeans curious about Africa. Are all the motley armies composed of indigenous people and immigrants in Africa so powerful? However, the British government was furious, but after calming down, it felt scared again. The first time can be said to be a fluke, but in southern Africa, Britain was defeated by the ragtag army of the Transvaal Republic when it changed its opponent. This made all the British feel a serious and terrible fact. The British Army, isn't this too watery and incompetent? Compared with the Navy, at this moment, the title of the British Army is now just a name, and many people in the Navy feel ashamed of this. They feel that they have put the majesty of the British Empire on the ground and stepped on it a few times, which makes them very sad. On April 5, 1862, Queen Victoria, who was forced to do so, once again signed an order in the name of the British National Military's supreme head. After withdrawing 50,000 troops from the mainland last time, she again withdrew 50,000 troops from the remaining 350,000 army to South Africa. However, the difference this time is that a small fleet will be added to accompany it to support the attack on land at any time. Chapter 81, Messengers from Europe. Transvaal Republic, capital Pretoria. Martinus Pretorius entered the hall, just glanced at him lazily, closed his eyes again, but did not speak. Instead, a guy next to him who seemed to be his think tank jumped out and shouted, "How dare you? You don't show courtesy to the head of our Transvaal Republic." Venus, who had been waiting for a long time, saw Martinus sitting on a high seat with a calm face, and couldn't help but sneer in her heart, thinking, "Martinus, you are still pretending to be indifferent in front of me at this time. I am kind enough to put out the fire for you. Should you beg me or should I beg you? You don't even know the priority, and you still want me to show you courtesy? You want the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, your former homeland, to show courtesy to you, an unrecognized head of state? Are you crazy?" Although he was furious, he managed to suppress his anger as the important matter was more important. He put his hands together and greeted Martinus, who was sitting high, and said neither arrogantly nor humbly, "I am the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the local country, named Venus, and I have come to meet the leader of the South African immigrants in the Netherlands." Martinus remained motionless, but that guy snorted again, and asked with his nose up, "It is said that the Kingdom of the Netherlands has never regarded us as compatriots. Now seeing that we have won many victories in the struggle with Britain, while the Netherlands has been defeated by Britain repeatedly, do you want to ask us for help, fellow countrymen in the Dutch homeland?" As for what Minister Nader said about helping the Transvaal Republic to overcome difficulties, we are a little curious about what qualifications the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which can hardly protect itself and cannot stand up in front of Britain, has to help us. Now it actually comes to visit us with a ridiculous reason of rescuing us. Seeing this man despise the Netherlands, Venus was furious. However, he knew that he was not here to argue with people like him. He suppressed his dissatisfaction, clenched his fists, took 2 deep breaths of the dry air in South Africa, and spoke out loudly what he had calculated in his heart. "Sir, what position do you hold now? I don't deserve it. I am Nader, the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Transvaal. I am half a level higher than you. I am the chief and you are the vice chief." Venus said to Martinus. The leader went forward to clear the country, and then sent a letter to the Republic of the Orange Free State to form an alliance to disperse the British garrison, which made this time successful. The battle made the Transvaal Republic famous all over the world. However, the leader knows that the Transvaal Republic is about to face a disaster. To be precise, high-level officials may be cleared out by the British. Venus said that when Martinus opened his eyes, he didn't speak, but he showed a little pride. The man looked at Nad outside with his mouth open, and coughed lightly. Nad looked back at him, then quickly looked at Venus, and shouted, "What are you talking about? Such nonsense! Although you are from the Kingdom of the Netherlands, if you speak rudely again, be careful that we will no longer welcome your visit." "Chief, don't you believe it?" Venus asked back indifferently. Martinus looked at him seriously, and then said nothing. Venus did not wait for the guy named Nad to speak, and said to himself, "The British are powerful, and their navy is unrivaled in the world. They have the most developed economy in Europe, and many colonies provide them with resources for their development. Their military and economy are the best in the world. Does the Transvaal Republic have the confidence to win against such a country? Before Venus finished speaking, Nad jumped out again and said dissatisfiedly, "Humph, so what? These people sent by the British are just a group of rabble, all defeated by South African countries. Even if they are sent again, it is just a joke in our eyes." Seeing Martinus's face sank slightly, the so-called foreign minister named Nad shut up for a while. Obviously, despite his tough words, Venus seized this point to pry open the hidden hesitation in the hearts of the two, and then slowly find what they want and bargain. Therefore, he will complete his mission from the Netherlands across the ocean and succeed. As expected, he was a local official at the ministerial level. Martinus glanced at Nader, who had followed him for many years, and thought to himself, without formal training, he still lacks a lot, especially in temperament. He lacks some of the qualities that should be possessed by that position. Finally, Martinus finally spoke, and he said slowly, "I don't know what the minister means by this. I finally opened your mouth. As long as you open your mouth, you will slowly fall into my trap." Venus paused for a moment, and saw that Martinus opened his eyes and leaned forward slightly. Knowing that he was listening carefully, he smiled in his heart and said directly, "After our evaluation, the Transvaal Republic now has 20,000 troops, plus Orange's 10,000, a total of 30,000 troops. The UK originally had 11,000, but later only 7,000. Now it has been beaten and destroyed. Now there are only 15,000 in Port Elizabeth and 10,000 in East London, a total of 25,000 people. You have more than 5,000 troops than the British Army." Seeing the two people's smug expressions, Venus said, "But I just got the news that the Queen of England has signed a new order to mobilize the army." Ah! Martinus stood up in shock when he heard this. The one called Nader opened his mouth wide and said in disbelief, again, "Yes, just 2 days ago, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom lost face because the South African military intelligence here was defeated twice, so the United Kingdom sent out 50,000 troops again, and the local situation is still gathering more troops for this, preparing to replace them. The intention of the United Kingdom is very obvious. If you don't take you down and take revenge, it will be difficult to eliminate the hatred in your heart." Venus didn't even look at the foreign minister, whose face changed drastically, and continued, "I don't need to say much about the strength of the United Kingdom. I think everyone knows that since it defeated our kingdom of the Netherlands more than 100 years ago, the United Kingdom has almost won every war with other countries. However, it has a small population and a large stall, so it doesn't care much about some places, and South Africa is such a place. Now, with your help, they have finally turned their attention back here. It's like stirring up a hornet's nest. The British Army will send troops here in an endless stream. There are more than 30 million people in the UK, and how many people are there in the Transvaal Republic? How many people are there in the Orange Free State Republic? How many people are there in the Zulu Kingdom? The British just need to make a game for everyone to participate in, one-on-one. Even if the three kingdoms are great, the three kingdoms with less than 1 million people can't fight against the UK, right? What's more, with the previous two failures, the UK will not take risks again this time. I think if I were the commanding officer of the British Army, I would lead the British Army to choose a strategy of nibbling away at the enemy step by step. Moreover, the Mozambique Channel and the coastal waters of southern Africa will be completely blocked at sea, and all land will be cleared until the capitals of various countries are reached. By then, the other countries of the Transvaal Republic will be short of food, and there will be no parts to repair guns, and ammunition will be exhausted. At that time, I think you should know what the consequences will be." When Venus finished speaking, the faces of the two people in front of him changed drastically. It must be said that Venus hit the fear in their hearts. As the rulers, they are naturally very familiar with the little land in their hands. What they said was right. They knew very well that it was not feasible to stop the British rule, especially Martinus. His father, Andries Pretorius, the founding leader of the Transvaal Republic, had said with a wry smile that he could not stop the British attack. If he was asked, he would choose to surrender in order to slowly plan for restoration in the future. The second way was to return to the Netherlands and ask for the Pretorius family to be rich and prosperous forever. As if seeing through Martinus's heart, Venus sincerely advised, "In this situation, there is no room for maneuver. The British may let others go, but as the leaders of the three countries who started it, one is smart. I don't think you will think that you and your family will have a good end. So what, Can the Netherlands help me resist the British? Martinus looked at Venus with sarcasm. But in Venus's view, it was a kind of expectation and desire. It's impossible to just the Netherlands, but what about France and Prussia? Venus said mysteriously. Of course they can, but will these two countries risk falling out with the British and join us in fighting against Britain? Nader interrupted in disbelief. Apparently his question hit upon what Martinus was thinking, so he smiled at him. Venus said confidently, nothing is impossible in this world. Don't forget, these two countries have far fewer overseas colonies than Britain, and now the Transvaal Republic is the best opportunity for these two countries to intervene in southern Africa. What does the Transvaal Republic have to do with them? Nader asked puzzledly. Have you forgotten the ethnic composition of the Transvaal Republic? Martinus was stunned, and Nader was even more surprised. Yes. The population of the Transvaal Republic is 300,000, and the Orange Free State is 100,000. However, compared with the Orange Free State, 95% of the people are Dutch. The cabinet is composed of pure Dutch people, and it is also a pure Protestant Christian country. The Transvaal Republic has too many ethnic groups. As for the Orange Free State Republic, here is the first chapter, and there will be another chapter before 0000. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. The Combined Fleet Sets Sail. In the Transvaal Republic, the Dutch account for 70%, the French 15%, the Prussians 10%, and the remaining 5% are immigrants from other European countries. There are even British immigrants, but just like in the United States, they are all prisoners in the UK. Martinus suddenly thought of something. He looked up abruptly at Venus and exclaimed, are the Netherlands, Prussia and France preparing to use immigrants from the three countries too? Yes, Venus nodded. France and Prussia have already discussed with us and are ready to intervene in southern Africa in the name of the three countries. What price do we need to pay? There is no free lunch in the world. I know that many Dutch people want to return to their motherland. His Majesty William IV told us to unite all the Dutch people in the world to gather strength like a rope. There are more than 1 million Dutch people in the world now, including more than 500,000 in South Africa. If we can unite you all under the Kingdom of the Netherlands, then the Netherlands will be strong and prosperous. Venus said this, and said to Martinus seriously, Chief, Your Majesty, I sincerely hope that you will join the Netherlands' revival plan to restore the Netherlands' former glory. Martinus hadn't said anything yet, but the person next to him wanted to speak, but this time, Martinus stopped him. It seemed that he looked at the Dutch envoy in front of him seriously for the first time. What can I get? Of course, it won't be your loss for the heroes who are loyal to His Majesty and have made great contributions to the Netherlands. His Majesty said that if you are willing to lead the Transvaal Republic to join the Kingdom of the Netherlands, then the leader will be the Deputy Minister of the Netherlands Army and will also receive the hereditary title of Baron. What about the Republic of the Orange Free State? It has agreed to return to the Kingdom of the Netherlands in return and accept the rule of His Majesty. Nader was shocked and looked at Venus in disbelief. Oh, Orange had unknowingly thrown itself into the arms of the Kingdom of the Netherlands? Martinus closed his eyes and said after a moment, I agree. Head of State Martinus stopped Nader and said, I have made up my mind. Returning to the Netherlands has been the dream of our family for generations. Now that the dream is about to come true, why do you have to stop it? Nader was silent, but from an angle that Martinus, who was standing beside him, could not see, Nader showed Venus a reward for completing the task. After getting Venus's nod, the former also smiled. On April 3, 1862, the foreign ministries of France, the Netherlands and the Netherlands formally called on Britain to exercise restraint on the South African issue, and asked Britain to protect the lives and property of the three ethnic groups when dealing with them. The three countries called on Britain to conduct serious negotiations with the Republic of Transvaal, the Republic of Austria, the Republic of the Orange Free State and the Kingdom of Zulu to resolve the dispute peacefully. The three countries also expressed their concerns about the safety of the ethnic groups in various countries. On the second day, London responded. The British Foreign Office expressed dissatisfaction with the three countries' interference in South African affairs, and declared that the three countries were interfering in Britain's internal affairs. Britain reserved its opposition to the three countries, but did not want the three countries to stir up the British people again. The British Foreign Office also listed the number of British people killed in South Africa, as well as the cries of the people of London and even the entire British people, and the public opinion of dissatisfaction with those countries in South Africa. Then, many people were surprised that they did not see the response of the three countries on April 5, 1862. Did the three countries retreat? Many people speculated so, but they soon dispelled such ideas. Because on April 6, the answer came. Newspapers for sale, newspapers for sale, breaking news, the world is about to start a chaos, everyone come and buy a newspaper, you can no longer watch the world, this is called watching the world, this is the treatment of leaders of various countries, newspapers for sale, everyone come and see. Prussia, France, the Netherlands formed a joint navy and an army peacekeeping force, will set off to South Africa to compete with Britain for territory. London, Paris, Rome, Vienna, Madrid, Lisbon, Berlin, Amsterdam, Brussels, St. Petersburg, New York, etc. The world was silent in the voices of the world's newsboys, because, with the emergence of this news, no one could predict how the world would develop. The situation has never been so turbid. On April 6, 1862, a report from the world-renowned European Times shocked the world with the shouting of newsboys from all over the world. According to the headline of this newspaper, yesterday, in the morning of 1862, in the port of Rotterdam, Prussia, France and the Netherlands formed a huge fleet, including 3 first-class sailing battleships provided by various countries and 9 battleships of other levels composed of 3 other ships, a total of 12 battleships, and suddenly appeared outside the port of Rotterdam for a military ceremony. The Prussian and French ambassadors to the Netherlands attended the ceremony. Dutch Foreign Minister Husbert van H and Dutch Navy Minister Jan Peeters presided over the ceremony as the highest-ranking officials in the Netherlands. Afterwards, the fleet began its long voyage. In addition to the fleet of more than 4,000 people, there were also transport ships of various countries transporting the army. It is said that the army is large in size, and conservatively estimated that it will not be less than 10,000 people. Combined with the recent situation of the three countries, many people speculated that the three countries were retaliating against Britain. Many people in the UK even began to panic, thinking that when crossing the English Channel, they would drive directly to London, block London's port, and fire cannons to demonstrate from time to time. Would the three countries even land directly on the British Isles? Would the Queen have already dispatched troops? In short, the news in this newspaper had already appeared, and it had stunned all the people of the British Empire, and people began to pay attention to the movements of this fleet. Even in London, some students protested against the actions of the three countries, some purple protested against the weakness of the British military, and only bullied its own people and some weak colonies such as the Indian subcontinent, and some people protested against the British Foreign Office, saying that Britain's foreign relations had failed, and the three countries had formed an alliance to deal with Britain. In short, the current British government, which had been in chaos in South Africa before, was now in a difficult situation. The whole people were made to form a storm to attack the rulers by this information. At the same time, in other countries in Europe and America, they also had newspaper reports, and people who were very concerned about everything about the three countries in Britain quickly spread the news, and soon the news spread to all countries. This caused other countries to have different attitudes. The interests and positions of each person and country were different. Therefore, behind this news, countries and individuals were considering its significance and importance. They were all calculating the gains and losses. But where would the fleet that had already set sail go? Everyone was full of doubts, including everyone in the three countries and readers. Chapter 2. Chapter 83 The Future Direction of the Netherlands. Chapter 83 The Future Direction of the Netherlands. However, the matter seemed to be completely beyond the expectations of everyone outside. The British government surprisingly chose not to make any comments, which increased everyone's imagination. Is Britain afraid? Or is it secretly operating the energy that may suddenly burst out? As the initiator of this action, France, the Netherlands and the Netherlands surprisingly maintained a tacit understanding with Britain, and did not make any statement to explain the reasons and goals of this long-distance joint fleet. This caused not only the civilians to discuss it, but also politicians from various countries to pay attention to it, staring at the direction of the joint fleet, trying to determine the plans of the three countries. Downing Street, the seat of the British Empire Cabinet. Downing Street is located in Whitehall in the centre of London, in a corner that is not opposite the parade ground and St. James Park, and is only a few minutes away from the Palace of Westminster. Downing Street was built by Dr. George Downing, the first generation of Sir Downing from 1632 to 1689. The street was named after his surname. Downing himself was a soldier and diplomat. He had served Oliver Cromwell and King Charles II of England successively. Later, Charles II granted Downing a piece of land close to St. James Park. After construction, that piece of land became today's Downing Street. Downing Street is now the official residence of the British Prime Minister and other cabinet members. Viscount, I think we are too indulgent to the three countries. Judging from the fact that the three countries chose to form a provocative joint fleet this time, we should at least express opposition. After all, the interests and status of the empire in the Atlantic have always been to suppress all countries comprehensively. Now with a combination of the three countries, the navy of the British Empire has the wrong feeling of being surpassed by the three countries. The result can be drawn from the great reaction of the Chinese people this time. Not to mention them, even I feel suppressed. Palmerston did not comment on the words of Richard Cobden, the Minister of Commerce. Instead, he said, "If you find that there are several big men around you who are circling around the piece of fat beef in your hand, you should divide them into two teams to duel, and then announce that the last winner standing can get half of the beef, and when the last person standing comes to you to ask for the beef, we will go and hit the other party head on." The British Empire is now facing a situation similar to the protagonist holding the beef. As the country with the most colonies in the world, it is a blessing to be envied, and being remembered by others proves how strong our national strength is. Therefore, the existence of Britain's every move itself is a manifestation of a broad influence on countries around the world. Countries around the world envy and seduce other countries to look at it with strange eyes. Especially in this era of rapid rise of emerging powers in the world, let alone Prussia, even the Russian Empire has only risen in the past 100 years. The United States and Italy have also established their foundations. We need to use special methods to maintain the position of our British Empire in the world. My predecessors have done a good job, and we should also make use of these remaining heat, and even add more fire to establish our own policy implementation. Therefore, this time the three countries seem to be targeting the UK, but in fact it is just a bold move. They are all afraid of the UK. France will not easily be willing to cooperate with others sincerely, only the interests are bound. When they feel that the interests are not big enough, when they can get more benefits by cooperating with another group of people, then this trilateral agreement will become a virtual thing. Haha, now the three countries are shouting happily, but in fact the three countries also have their own ulterior motives, and their interests are supreme. Since they want to show off, as long as it does not involve the fundamental interests of Britain, why don't we let them vent and then let them duel each other? But Prime Minister, are they going to continue their drama? Richard Cobden had entered the British cabinet a few years ago. He had his own team in the Whig Party. In 1859, he even competed with Palmerston for the position of Prime Minister in the National Party. He was eventually defeated by the other party, but the other party also generously invited him to serve as the Minister of Commerce. In line with the principle of not confronting the general trend, he took a conciliatory attitude and did not reject the other party's kindness and accepted it. However, in terms of policy, he sometimes insisted on his own ideas, such as the famous opposition to the Corn Laws. But aren't we acting? Then Prime Minister, what should we do next? Now the public opinion in the country is very dissatisfied with our cabinet. If we don't take countermeasures, then the Tory party will really turn over in the next general election. Palmerston said with wisdom, since the three countries are going to play such a trick, then well, we will play with them. Tell our people in the South United States to start the propaganda device and spread a message in the South United States, that is, the joint army of the three countries is preparing to land in the southern United States to support the South against the North United States, and then the world will simultaneously publicize it. Richard Cobden was stunned at first, and then showed a look of shock, and then said happily, "Hi, it's really hi." The other cabinet members also brightened up when they heard it. Opposition towards the United States completely exposed the differences between the three countries to the world. On April 8, 1862, the Southern Herald of the United States took the lead in reporting a news that the marching direction of the joint navy of the Netherlands, France and Prussia had determined to land in Florida, the United States, and would help the South resist the invasion of the North. For a time, the entire southern United States was in a state of cheering. Even some people from the Southern Alliance of the United States stood up to express their appreciation for the support of the three countries and express their gratitude. Even the Southern Commander-in-Chief Robert Edward Lee stood up. "Thank you very much for the support of the three countries. We sincerely thank them. They have been very helpful to us. It is said that the three countries will provide more than 10,000 army support this time, and naval support is our most urgent need. For this reason, we have prepared the most delicious dinner and are ready to entertain them after they arrive." As the top figure of the Southern military confirmed, everyone looked at the north of the United States with strange eyes. Europe. Amsterdam. When William IV heard the news, he felt very strange. What is going on? The combined fleet has not started yet, but it is being instructed by someone. The three countries set sail, but the purpose is controlled by others? Needless to say, he also knew that the instigator behind this was Britain. "Your Majesty, should we refute the other party?" Heesbert von said worriedly. "The British are really ruthless this time, but as long as we refute them publicly, we can greatly embarrass them. It is said that public opinion in Britain has fermented now, and there is a risk of attacking their cabinet at any time. If we refute, it is possible that their public opinion will become more dangerous, and this government may step down." William IV did not answer, but looked at the Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke. "What do you think of this matter?" "No," Thorbecke objected, "Your Majesty, I think we should not refute, but should immediately contact France and Prussia, keep silent on this matter, and at the same time order the fleet to change its direction, which is the Florida in this public opinion." Thorbecke said shockingly. All the members of the Privy Council present were shocked. William IV asked with interest, "Why? Your Majesty and everyone, have you ever thought about this? Recently, we have had many conflicts with the United States in the north. Although it seems to have eased the tense conflicts between the two countries temporarily because of the British, the fundamental conflicts have not been completely resolved. In the past, I was thinking about how the Netherlands could dissolve its relationship with the United States and how to deal with this emerging power. After all, the size of the Netherlands is too small, but it is a bit difficult to start. Britain's move this time directly used the attitudes of the three countries towards the United States. Although it clearly stated the differences between the three countries, it was a direct move to hurt the heart. But it is also an opportunity for the Netherlands to ease the relationship with the United States. "Your Majesty, the population of the Netherlands needs to grow recently, but the United States has 600,000 Dutch. If we can speed up the withdrawal of these Dutch because of this matter, just like in South Africa during this period, then the final winner, the Netherlands, will definitely be one of the countries with the most." When others thought that the Netherlands was competing for territory with various countries, what they didn't know was that Your Majesty's actions these days were all to unite the Dutch in the world. As long as more than 1 million people return, the Dutch population policy will continue. We can even put these millions of people directly into overseas territories, such as Alaska and East India. For example, Your Majesty is going to take over Madagascar and Tanzania, as well as Queensland and the Northern Territory and Northern Australia. Especially Australia, according to British data, the population is only about 1 million now, and New Zealand Island is only tens of thousands. If we step up the layout of population policy, then according to Your Majesty's long-term goal of taking over Australia, the speed will be faster. The Privy Council was quiet, and at the same time, everyone showed hope. William IV looked around at everyone and said, "You all know the current situation of the Netherlands without me telling you. This is a place of war on all sides, with no strategic locations to defend. It can be a granary, but it can also be said to be a battlefield where the fruits of war are harvested. If the Netherlands wants to grow stronger, it needs an environment and space in which it can develop steadily. The lowest level is Madagascar Island. Its sphere of influence is Tanzania, as well as the Kingdom of Congo and Angola, which we had an alliance with 100 years ago. This is the direction of development I have chosen. But our goal is the Australian continent. As long as we take it, it will be a leapfrog development for us. Just think about it, when it is linked to the Dutch East Indies, how large is the area of the Netherlands, and how broad is its development space?" Chapter 1. Chapter 84 Lincoln's White Paper to Britain. The Northern Federation of the United States, Wharton City. "President, why did you send to summon the ambassadors of France, Prussia and the Netherlands? You should know that except for Prussia, our current bad relationship makes people wonder what our purpose is." Seward felt that Lincoln seemed different today. Today, he seemed to have something more. Yes, he seemed to be more defensive. As long as you look at the calmness on his face, you can see something. Since none of the three countries have fired any shots at us, then we are not in a state of war. One more enemy means more energy wasted on them. Britain is our enemy, and the South is what we need to deal with most at present. At this point, Lincoln couldn't help but frown. To be honest, he didn't want to do this, because summoning the three countries means that the three countries will occupy an advantageous position, but if he didn't summon them, then the states of the Northern Industrial Alliance of the United States under his leadership would appear to be weak. Especially with Britain's continuous support for the South. Looking at the current situation, the British are determined to protect the South. In addition to the previous hostility between the United States and France and the Netherlands, the United States' progress is worrying. This can be seen from the fact that the Russian Empire, except for the last model of hiring and paying, will not pay them if they do not pay. You can know how bad the external environment of the United States is now. And Seward, who is in front of him, is trying to make enemies with these people. Isn't that purely making the diplomatic life of the United States more uncomfortable? Although the Monroe Doctrine represents the encouragement of diplomacy, the U.S. economy was inward-looking at the time. Now it is different from the past. The United States has risen to become an economic power, and industrial products have changed from imports to exports in more than 30 years. The international environment of the United States will affect the export of U.S. industrial products, and then affect the jobs of the people in the United States. If the jobs cannot be saved, then there is no need to think that the newly established Republicans will not be able to expect to be in power again in the next election. Therefore, although Seward's ambitions are the same as his and the direction is highly consistent, the two actually have differences in the grasp of time. Now is not the time to have a conflict with the Netherlands and other countries, so Seward's idea needs to be corrected. In contrast, Washburn made him feel more satisfied. Let's do this, try to coordinate and ease the relationship with the three countries, and if necessary, sacrifice some interests. As Lincoln finished speaking, Seward felt a chill in his heart. The United States finally compromised. As if knowing Seward's dissatisfaction, Lincoln promised, but one day, we will get it back with interest, and this day will not be too late. Britain may use the United States as a card to prevent France and Prussia and the Netherlands from forming an alliance. U.S. President Lincoln directly wrote an article in the most influential newspaper in Europe, European Times, saying that Britain missed the opportunity to prevent Paris, Amsterdam and Berlin from getting closer and jointly opposing Britain. This is his diplomatic white paper. Now Britain will need more money, time and warships to achieve this goal. He said that the United States will use various purposes in the future to achieve this goal. France is worried about Britain's growing influence in the Mediterranean. At the same time, France, Prussia and the Netherlands were worried about the potential threat brought by Britain's increasing influence in Belgium, and their hearts were filled with dissatisfaction. In the economic field, the resources collected by Britain from all over the world supplied Britain's industrial products for export development, which was very painful for other European countries, because the more British industrial products were sold to other countries, the weaker the industrial strength of the buying country. This is where other countries worry about Britain. Because this is an economic weapon, it can destroy the industrial progress of other countries. The United States, precisely because of its industrial progress, has brought many threats to Britain, so in order to prevent this weapon from being weakened, Britain has been preparing to weaken the industrial strength of the United States in various ways, and even wants to take over the industrial base of the United States and complete the strategy of swallowing up the industrial achievements of the United States. The cause of the development of the Civil War in the United States today is that Britain is fueling the flames, which has led to the current division between the North and the South. France, Prussia and the Netherlands in Europe have different economic interests. France has the most comprehensive economy and its industrial level is second only to Britain. The earliest exposition was held in the United Kingdom, with the theme of world industry. The Great Exhibition of 1851, held in London in the second half of the 19th century, became the world's first world-class exposition. It was held in Hyde Park, London, England, from May 1 to October 11, 1851. The main content was world culture and industrial technology. After this World Expo, London became an industrial capital recognized by all countries. Later, the Second World Expo was held in 1857, and Paris was the host city of this expo. The theme was industry, agriculture and art. It also established Paris as the capital of art, second only to London's industrial city. Although the Netherlands is also very advanced in industrial technology, especially in heavy industry and agriculture, it is an advanced country in Europe, but the country's market capacity is destined not to be equal to each other. Therefore, the Netherlands is very much looking forward to opening up other countries' markets, but France is conservative in this regard because the market is not equal. And Prussia will not easily get involved in the economic field. Why? Because Prussia established its own territory. The North German Customs Union. 17 of the 28 countries of the German Confederation have formed a customs union with Prussia to form the North German Customs Union. The remaining 9 countries formed the Southern Customs Union with Austria, confronting the North and the South. Therefore, Prussia's move to enter into economic agreements with other countries will cause strange ideas among their customs union partners, making it difficult for Prussia to slowly infiltrate them. After all, if the signatory countries import products of the same type as these countries, it will weaken their competitiveness and make them meaningless in this alliance. Therefore, economic cooperation among the 3 countries is definitely a forbidden zone. An alliance will be open to each other in all areas. If not, it proves that such an alliance is just a stopgap measure and exists temporarily. Lincoln expounded on the economic diversification of the 3 countries, especially pointing out the competitive relationship between the Netherlands and Prussia in importing iron ore, and therefore concluded that unless the 2 countries solve this problem, then with the rapid development of the industrial base of the 2 countries, conflicts will sooner or later break out. Lincoln also pointed out the 3 countries' battle for influence in Belgium. Like Britain, they did not like the Netherlands to gain full influence over Belgium. Lincoln also believed that it was becoming increasingly difficult for Britain to play the Belgian card in the relationship between the 3 countries. Britain's support policy for Belgium brought the 3 countries closer on issues of disagreement. In the future, when the 3 countries take more concerted actions to confront Britain, Britain will have to pay a higher price. After all, it was mentioned above that the economies of the 3 countries have not merged, which means that the 3 countries have excluded the economic factor in terms of conflict of interests. Instead, it seems safer. Undoubtedly, Britain will do its utmost to prevent the 3 countries from getting closer, but what role will Belgium's geographical location play in it? The US president further supported with great interest that the 3 countries are currently in a comprehensive partnership, and the confrontation with Britain may not be the main component of this relationship. It is one-sided and incorrect to view the relationship between the 3 countries only from the perspective of opposing the world hegemony, because everyone should not forget that in addition to Britain and these 3 countries, there are also heavyweight powers such as the Russian Empire, Austria, and the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Spain. The United States is naturally also a member. Although I feel a little bit of flattery, the economic strength of the United States should not be denied by other countries. Going back, the relationship between Britain and the 3 countries has evolved, in addition to Britain's alliance with the old great power Austrian Empire and the newly established Mediterranean power Kingdom of Italy. This is a trend, and I don't think it will stop developing. All countries have a sense of crisis. Although these 2 major military groups have just been formed, they are heavyweight players. They may accidentally fire at any time because of an accident. At that time, a war will come. For this reason, the United States calls on European countries to calm down and cool down. At the same time, on the issue of North America, France, Prussia and the Netherlands should coordinate on the same position. Just as our 3 ambassadors confirmed a few days ago, the 3 countries only recognize the Northern Industrial Alliance as the representative government of the Federal Republic of the United States. The Southern Alliance does not have the right to represent the United States. Even the British government has not recognized them until now. Under the current situation, Britain should abandon the topic of threat theory to the United States and the other 3 countries, and resolve disputes among countries through communication. The policy of blocking the United States is futile. The United States is already a major participant in the world economic system. How can Britain confront the United States without harming itself? For example, if Britain stops trading with Portugal tomorrow, no one will notice this change, but if it stops trading with the United States, the negative impact on Britain will be immediate. Similarly, if Britain threatens the 3 countries, and the 3 countries boycott British goods, then Britain, an industrial power, will suddenly lose one of its most important markets, and exports will at least drop by more than 30%. For Britain, this will definitely be a major decision-making mistake for their country, and the pressure on the cabinet will definitely increase exponentially. Finally, I, the President of the United States, Lincoln, advised Britain to face the reality of the development and rise of various countries, accept the equal status of various countries with Britain, and stop alienating the relationship between the United States and France, the Netherlands, and I believe that if this is the case, the three countries will not be in alliance against Britain, and Americans will be more relaxed in their relations with Britain. With Lincoln's frank views on foreign relations, the position of the United States has attracted great attention. At the same time, as the French, Prussian and Dutch navies seemed to be sailing towards the Southern Alliance route in the Atlantic, Lincoln's point of view seemed to have a different ambiguity. Was this fleet supporting the South or attacking the Southern Alliance? Chapter 2. I wrote the wrong chapter title just now, I will change it. Chapter 85. Others share property together, we share the country. While the world was discussing this combined fleet, the three commanders of this combined fleet were staring at each other with contempt, especially the commanders of the French Empire and Prussia. I say, can you two stop being hostile to each other? We are all in the same boat now. The speaker was Leon Booker, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Dutch General Staff. Theo Jan Linden, the current Dutch Navy Rear Admiral of the Dutch East Indies, was his successor. Looking at the two people in front of him who were now equal to him on the ship, he felt a headache and laughed at the same time. It was not known whether France and Prussia did it on purpose or were competing. This time, they actually sent two former mortal enemies and enemies on the battlefield to serve as partners to jointly host a combined fleet mission. Can such a team be running? He was a little skeptical. Patrice McMahon was an interesting person. I didn't expect Napoleon to value him so much. He knew a lot about this person. This French officer named McMahon was a very famous person. He was of Irish descent. He was born in Salon-et-Loire in 1808 and graduated from the French Military Academy in 1827. He went to France's overseas colonies for training in 1830. In 1837, after 7 years there, he participated in the Constantine Offensive at the age of 29 and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his military merits. In 1855, he was even regarded as a division and participated in the Crimean War. In September, he led his troops to capture the Malakoff Heights in Sevastopol. In 1859, as a military commander, he participated in the Second Italian Independence War to support the Kingdom of Sardinia against the Austrian Empire, helping Italy to successfully complete independence. It can be said that he scored a lot of points for France in the establishment of the new Kingdom of Italy. Unfortunately, because of Napoleon II's ambitions for Italy, the two countries finally parted ways. Britain took advantage of the opportunity and picked up the fruits of victory, but he fought in vain. There was also a person sent by Prussia, who made him even more solemn, because this person was called Prince Frederick Karl. Yes, he was Frederick Karl of Prussia, the grandson of King Frederick William II of Prussia and the nephew of William I. Born in Berlin in 1828, he received military education since childhood. At the age of 16, he was awarded the rank of hungrier. At the age of 18, he entered the University of Bonn to study for 2 years. After graduation, he became the right-hand man of William I and the adjutant of the Minister of War and Government, that is, the Minister of War Brecht von Roon, and later the Minister of War. He traveled around the world and returned to Prussia a few years later. William I ordered him to command an infantry regiment. Later, in 1848, he brutally suppressed the uprising of those anti-Prussian government elements. These experiences brought him courage and unshakable determination. He became a colonel in 1852, a major general in 1854 and commanded a cavalry brigade. In 1857, he became the commander of the 1st Division of the Guards. In 1858, he visited the French Empire. During this period, he carefully observed the country and its army. Not long after, in the war between France and Austria because the Kingdom of Sardinia became Italy, Prussia mobilized to help Austria, and Frederick Karl was appointed as the second commander of the army. After the war, he attacked the French army in its training methods and many speeches in Prussia. Unexpectedly, after being translated by the French media, it caused a huge backlash in France. So under pressure, William I could only transfer him to a sinecure. Unexpectedly, the two enemies met on such an occasion this time. Leon Booker, you said it nicely. If your hands and feet were chopped and bloody in front of you, would you still be so calm? The speaker was Frederick Karl, who stared at McMahon with a cold face. I don't know how elegant your expression was when you shot my deputy general in Sardinia in front of him. McMahon fought back even more fiercely. I say, you two, you are discussing fighting for them, but now they are Britain's allies. Is such a country worth discussing here? I think we should complete the tasks you have accepted in various countries and return to the previous state after this cooperation. At that time, I would be interested in watching the show with a bench by the side, and I only hope that you two will perform more brilliantly. You both of them glared at Leon Booker. In the end, they chose to wave their hands. Looking at the two people's appearance, Booker sneered in his heart. He never believed that an officer would be resentful about the death of his comrades. Even if he remembered it deeply, it was because too many people died without military merit and were punished. Therefore, he would not doubt that the two were pretending. The two strong men who were tough in their respective countries were just looking for a way to step down. And Booker gave them this step. Booker came to the place where he had already ordered people to put up. Now our current location is in the Madeira Islands of Portugal. Seeing that the two were looking up, and they were concentrating, he thought to himself that they were really acting just now. He continued, if there is no plan, I don't mind entering the Mediterranean, swimming around, and then showing off to the British from the newly built Suez Canal. However, due to the mission this time, I can only follow the orders from above. You two are elites in the military of various countries. I think I don't need to say that everyone understands that this time, rather than supporting the Republic of Transvaal in South Africa, what we are actually going to do is very clear. Let's not be frank here. Our Dutch goal this time is here, here, and here. The two looked over and their faces changed drastically, because they didn't expect that the Dutch appetite was so big. Even if the Kingdom of Congo is, no matter how big the Dutch draw it, it is still an uninhabited place. We accept it in France, but you Dutch are actually interested in Madagascar Island, which is a bit unacceptable, because we are also very interested in it. McMahon followed up, we have been interacting with the local indigenous kingdoms there for several years. Yes, the Netherlands is actually interested in Tanzania, and Prussia is actually interested there as well. Frederick Karl put forward Prussia's idea. It was a test of the water. Oh? If you two are really interested in them, the Netherlands won't mind giving it up, but we are also interested in Southwest Africa on the Atlantic side. After all, our own fleet can reach here by sailing north and south on the Atlantic Ocean, and it is more convenient to transport resources. Why don't we give Tanzania in the east to Prussia, and you recognize that Southwest Africa belongs to the Netherlands? Looking at the smiling Booker, the two of them felt that the other party just deliberately took out a piece of land at random, preparing to use it to pry open the real money behind it. Booker, although I am interested in Tanzania, Southwest Africa on the Atlantic Ocean is indeed more related to Prussia, Frederick Karl said hurriedly. Seeing that McMahon did not object, Booker said, so we, the Netherlands, got Tanzania. We, France, will not object, but for a fairness, what do we get? McMahon did not propose it himself, but asked Booker and the others to discuss what territory France should take. This old fox. Booker and Prince Karl looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. None of them are simple here. It can be said that everyone is the best in the military and is considered by various countries to be capable of standing on their own. Therefore, no one will underestimate the other party. Even if it seems that the other party sometimes reveals shortcomings, it may be a trap deliberately exposed by the other party. Booker looked at Prince Karl, who said, the French Empire now occupies Algeria in Africa. I think France can occupy a colony in Central Africa. How about here? Prince Karl stood up, holding a pen, and pointed to Nigeria. It is said that there are many people here, and it is quite close to Algeria. It is in line with France's usual strategy of connecting North and South Africa. Yes, this is a good idea, but France needs to add a colony next to it. I think Côte d'Ivoire is good. In this way, France can take over the entire Central and West Africa, almost except for Morocco and Spain. McMahon's hand holding the pen trembled, and he looked at the two people in surprise. At this moment, he understood why Napoleon III warned them to be careful of these two people before coming here. These two people are indeed not easy to deal with, but it is precisely because everyone is smart that it saves a lot of trouble. To put it simply, it means knowing how to deal with things. In this case, he did not refuse, but reciprocated, since the Netherlands likes Madagascar, and the relationship between our two countries has been neighbors for hundreds of years. Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. If the Netherlands wants it, we, France, naturally have the virtue of helping others. So, we recognize the rights and interests of the Netherlands in the Kingdom of Congo, Tanzania and Madagascar Island. As for Prussia, McMahon glared at Prince Karl and said, "Just like you said before, we, France, are willing to support Prussia in Southwest Africa, that is Namibia, and Somalia and Cameroon." Prince Karl ignored his face and directly said the place he wanted. "In that case, we think Kenya and Gabon are destined for us, and the Netherlands can govern them well. Since you two are so shameless, France is not behind others. We are very interested in the entire Central Africa and the West. When the time comes, the three countries will support each other. Of course we will support each other." Just like that, the three commanders of the combined fleet completed the private division of Africa on this level 4 sailing battleship. As for the remaining territory, they all understood that it was left to other countries including Britain, because with their strength, they really couldn't take so much. Chapter 3, Continue to ask for support. Chapter 86, The Greed of Napoleon III. Now that the division has been made, the next step will be easy. This time we all claim to have only 10,000 land forces, but in fact each of the three countries has 10,000. For the 30,000 land forces, France will deploy 2,000 and 3,000 soldiers in the Gulf of Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria respectively, and the remaining 3,000 will go to South Africa as originally planned. We in the Netherlands will land 3,000 Dutch soldiers on the Congo River near Gabon, and the remaining 7,000 will be deployed in Madagascar Island, 2,000 in Tanzania, and 5,000 in Tanzania. South Africa. We have transferred 3,000 native soldiers from East India to support them. It was McMahon and Prince Karl's turn to look at each other. They both saw the surprise and fear in each other's eyes. Prussia has deployed a total of 3,000 in Southwest Africa, 2,000 in Cameroon, 3,000 in Somalia, and 2,000 in South Africa. Period. On April 15, 1862, the British Empire launched another attack on the Zulu Kingdom in South Africa. In this battle, Durban was bombarded by the British Empire's warships and cannons, and half of the city became ruins. The British army of 20,000 in early winter, 5,000 of them died, and finally occupied the city. However, the Zulu Kingdom, led by Kazhiwe Okampanda, hid in the wilderness, and the British could only occupy Durban. After several attacks, they suffered huge casualties and dared not attack the Zulu Kingdom in the wild again. The Transvaal Republic was extremely quiet, with about 30,000 troops on both sides. They were all watching the battle between the Eastern Zulu Kingdom and the British Army in East London, as if watching a play, and did not move a bit. Obviously, they were all waiting for the arrival of the fleet in the Atlantic. However, the 50,000 Boers who originally occupied Cape Town retreated to Southwest Africa, and obviously did not want to confront the British Army head-on. The three parties were at peace and formed a balance. But everyone knows that this balance will soon pass. Really soon. At least one person in South Africa knows that this time is very close. That person is Venus, the Spanish Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is now in Pretoria, the capital of the Transvaal Republic. Under the command of him and Martinus, many people don't know that many Dutch people in the Transvaal Republic have begun to migrate slowly. Their migration direction is not the east or the west, nor the south that was occupied by people, but the north. Yes, the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State have formed a military-civilian integration team with a total of more than 50,000 people. They will enter Bechuanaland, later Botswana, southern Rhodesia, later Zimbabwe, and northern Rhodesia, later Zambia, from the north, and will open up a major passage to the north. According to the notice Venus received, after fighting a war with Britain, the Dutch will leave South Africa from the north, leaving the Republic of Transvaal to other European peoples, in order to attract the attention of various countries, and they will form a nearly 400,000 people in the Congo and Tanzania to cooperate with the Netherlands in the East and West Sea directions to enter the two places, and finally combine the inside and outside to completely occupy this piece of Central African territory. As for the life and death of the Zulus and other ethnic groups in Transvaal, does it have anything to do with them? At the same time, in the capital of the three peoples' homeland, their superiors were also closely discussing this move to divide Africa. Your Majesty, will Britain stand up and oppose it? Of course they oppose it, but now South Africa has made them collapse, and they can't handle it well. Now is the best time for them to claim Africa. If you miss this opportunity, you will miss it. There will be fewer opportunities in the future. Napoleon III said with hope. Olivier did not refute what he said. This period of time was the policy set by the three countries at the meeting of the three heads of state in Luxembourg some time ago. However, The three countries did not set their own goals at that time. However, it did not prevent the three countries from returning home and leaving the decisions of the commanders of the three countries to seize the victory. They were all confident in the people they sent. Alice, Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom, Palmerston, Stanley, etc., would never have thought that when they were calculating others had already begun to calculate them. William IV, the young descendant, is a lurking wolf. The Netherlands is too small, which restricts his ambitions for development. Napoleon III said enviously, William III is so lucky. He lets go of everything at such a young age and enjoys a leisurely retirement life. Oliver's heart suddenly moved. He thought of the 50,000 francs worth of gold coins that Jefferson Bryn, the Dutch ambassador to France, privately gave to him some time ago. He hesitated for a moment and took money to help others get rid of disasters. Your Majesty is jealous, Olivier said jokingly. Who said it wasn't? He is the third king of the Netherlands, and I am also the third, and I am 8 years older than him. He has now gone to Luxembourg to enjoy a peaceful life, while I am still struggling here. You didn't see it some time ago. I saw him in Luxembourg. He is so proud now. He has a good son. It's different. He didn't have such confidence at the beginning. Napoleon III became more and more angry as he spoke, and his dissatisfaction filled the air. Seeing that the time was almost right, Olivier said casually, since your Majesty is unhappy that he is so leisurely, why not make it difficult for him to continue? What do you mean? Napoleon III asked puzzled. Your Majesty should know that in the Kingdom of Greece, the people are very dissatisfied with Prince Otto from the Kingdom of Bavaria, the current King Otto of Greece, and it has caused many protests. Yes, all parties are paying attention to this issue now, and the people of this country are about to overthrow him. Our countries are discussing how to solve this problem. Back then, Britain, Russia and France escorted him all the way to Athens to sit on the throne, but this man is too useless. He has changed from a citizen full of hope to what he is now. It's so embarrassing. However, now all countries are discussing who can sit on that position, especially the royal families of various countries. Your Majesty, no one wants the king there to be an Ottoman. Napoleon III was shocked, and he thought of the purpose of sending Otto to sit there. It was originally made to split the Ottoman Turkey and weaken the other side. But at that time, Metternich, a key figure in the Austrian kingdom, existed, taking advantage of the relationship and geographical location between Britain, Tsarist Russia and France, and finally letting the Bavarian kingdom, a staunch ally of Austria, take advantage. Olivier, now Metternich has passed away, but it can be manipulated in this matter, especially now that the Austrian Empire is worthy of its name, and has lost its face due to the repeated challenges of Prussia, and the majesty of the empire is gone. Britain now has a strong navy, but on the barren land of South Africa, it has been made humiliated by those indigenous and immigrant countries. Although it still has spare strength now, it is obvious that, as we guessed before, they are now struggling. At this time, if we nominate someone who has a good relationship with us, it will maximize the interests of France. Napoleon finally understood that Olivier already had a candidate in mind. So he continued, who is the candidate for Prime Minister? My candidate? Isn't it your Majesty's candidate? Olivier asked back. Napoleon III was on the expedition, and then he thought of the former King William III of the Netherlands who had just been talked about. Your Majesty, William III is now 45 years old. One son has succeeded him as the King of the Netherlands, and the other son is the heir to the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. If we nominate him to go to Greece now, I believe no one will think he will be unsuitable. He is a good candidate, but the Netherlands can't just pick up a king for nothing. If so, the three fathers and sons control the three countries, which makes the Netherlands a force to be reckoned with. Be careful that it will backfire on us. Oliver's eyes flashed when he heard this, and he hesitated for a while. Finally, he said with a firm look, Your Majesty, Ambassador Bullen of the Netherlands came to me to ask Your Majesty to support William III. The Netherlands is willing to support France's actions in Mexico. Really? If Napoleon II's desire for Africa was a purely strategic and face-saving project of expanding the area, then his obsession with Mexico was an obsession, a hatred against Britain that ran deep into the bones and blood of the Napoleon family. Olivier naturally knew this, so he was sure to take Britain's gold coin worth 50,000 francs. As long as we and France take over Mexico, that puppet Austrian prince can be put aside. Olivier, you know, My real purpose in taking over Mexico is to develop a waterway better than the Suez Canal in that small town called Panama. By then, France can occupy a key waterway between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, just like Britain does now. France will heavily guard the place by then, and will not repeat the incident of the Suez Canal. You and I will both leave a strong mark in the future historical records of France. Of course, it will be praise. What about William III? Olivier asked again. Since the Netherlands is willing to support Mexico, we will naturally support it. However, the Kingdom of Greece is such a big piece of fat that a light support is naturally not enough. If the 3 southern provinces of Belgium are added, I will support them. Even, in the UK, I can help the Netherlands withstand a lot of their pressure. You make it clear to the guy named Bryn that this is our bargaining chip. If it succeeds, we will do it. If not, then forget it. Greedy. Olivier would naturally not object, but in his opinion, this condition was not considered to be difficult for the Netherlands. After all, they were about to be under pressure, and France had to ask for recommendation votes and monthly votes for support. Chapter 87, Orban finally stepped down. Chapter 87 Orban finally stepped down. On April 14, 1862, a huge scandal broke out in Belgian politics. Prime Minister Orban's brother accepted political donations from a Belgian company on behalf of Orban, and asked the Belgian government in power to fully support the company's business throughout Belgium after Orban was re-elected. This was a news report from a small newspaper, and it soon attracted national attention. As more and more people paid attention to it. Although they all denied it at the beginning, Orban even said righteously that it was just an attack from political opponents. I think this is a most unscrupulous attack launched because of dissatisfaction with my re-election as Prime Minister. This is an immoral behavior. We firmly oppose this foul campaign method. Politics does not need such lousy tricks. We should give them a wooden inversion to say no. However, as the evidence became conclusive, Orban said that he would sacrifice his relatives for the sake of justice. He was dissatisfied with his brother's private acceptance and felt heartbroken by his brother's stupid behavior. This is incredible. Our whole family treated him so well, but now such a thing has happened. As a brother, I only cared about doing things for His Majesty, but forgot to educate my family. I am really sorry. I will pay attention to them in the future. I will never use my power to do things that go against the interests of the country behind my back. At the same time, I will not interfere with the strict judgment of the fair Belgian judicial department on any princess. Absolutely not. With his repeated assurances, he overcame the second difficulty. But when the third difficulty came, he was speechless, because this time he could no longer quibble. Because this time, the contradiction pointed to him. It turned out that in the past few years of his prime ministership, he actually opened various shell companies in Belgium in the name of his relatives and earned state subsidies. This made Belgium unbearable, so riots broke out in Brussels. Then other provinces began to burn like wildfire. The other 3 candidates no longer remained gentlemanly, but chose to stand up and directly criticize Orban. Finally, King Leopold I of Belgium stood up and gave a touching speech. I must have been blinded by his kind appearance. It turns out that we have been living in the lies of a liar. He weaves beautiful dreams. He is so perfect that we are all moved by what he said. Orban, you have wronged the love of all Belgians, you have wronged the trust of God and me in you, you have wronged your conscience, and you have wronged the most basic qualities of the position of Prime Minister. From now on, you are no longer the Prime Minister of Belgium. Now, my son, Crown Prince Leopold, will serve as him concurrently and return the Kingdom of Belgium to an honest world. However, even so, people from all over Belgium did not bite and began to hold various marches. Among them, the 5 provinces of Limburg, Antwerp, Luxembourg, Namur and Hainaut were the most intense. Even the Belgian defense forces went to the peacekeeping, but they could not stop the dissatisfaction and marches in the 5 provinces. April 16. The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, Netherlands, Prime Minister Thorbecke of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Prime Minister Olivier of France and Prime Minister Bismarck of Prussia held a trilateral meeting. The 3 prime ministers confirmed the positions of the 3 parties on the Belgian issue, expressed their respective views, and finally issued a statement, expressing contempt for the corruption of Prime Minister Orban of the Kingdom of Belgium. At the same time, they said that it was an undemocratic performance for the Belgian royal family to concurrently hold the position of Prime Minister, and demanded that the Belgian royal family immediately return power to the people. They also said that they would not rule out sanctions against the Belgian royal family for this reason. The measures include prohibiting the Belgian royal family from having any economic exchanges with the three countries, prohibiting the Belgian royal family from passing through any territory and seaports of the three countries, prohibiting anyone in the three countries from having any possibility of developing any relationship with the Belgian royal family. In short, if the Belgian royal family does not return the power of prime minister to others to end the autocracy, then the three countries will completely block the Belgian royal family. The final deadline is set on April 30th. This is a shocking move. All European countries were shocked. If such a move falls on them, then the economic strength and industrial competitiveness of the three countries are the most famous in the world, as well as the military strength of the three countries. These are things that everyone needs to take into account. Obviously, this is the greatest level of pressure. Finally, someone couldn't stand it, and this person was naturally the Leopold family. He could only turn to Britain for help. On April 17th, the British Foreign Office announced that British Prime Minister Viscount Palmerston would visit Paris on April 20th. There, he will hold bilateral meetings with the prime ministers of the three countries. A spokesman for the British Foreign Office told the media at various countries that the time for Prime Minister Palmerston to meet with senior leaders of various countries will be agreed upon by all countries. During the talks, Prime Minister Palmerston will also hold bilateral talks with the prime ministers of various countries to discuss the current urgent issues between Britain and various countries. For example, cooperation with France in the Far East, joint efforts to restrain the Ottoman Turkey in the Mediterranean, joint opposition to the southward expansion of Tsarist Russia, coordination of positions in the American Civil War, and the development of the situation in Belgium. Britain and Prussia are within the German Confederation. Britain will clearly ask Prussia to abide by Austria's status. At the same time, the two countries also ask Prussia not to raise prices arbitrarily on Swedish iron ore to prevent Britain from forming a price war on imported Swedish iron ore, causing unnecessary losses to both sides. Belgium is also one of the main topics. With the Netherlands, Belgium is the top priority. After that, Britain will protest in the Netherlands about the transaction of Kalimantan Island in person. Britain will also express dissatisfaction with the Netherlands' support in South Africa. The spokesman also mysteriously stated that Britain and the Netherlands have other topics that will not be made public at present. Finally, the spokesman also stated that Viscount Palmerston will visit Milan, the Kingdom of Italy, on May 1st. He will also visit Vienna on May 5th. Finally, after visiting Tsar Alexander II in St. Petersburg, he will board the British First Fleet ship sent by the British Navy to St. Petersburg, end the visit, and start to return home from the sea. Britain is indeed Britain, and it makes a series of moves as soon as it strikes. Directly inviting the three countries to hold talks in Paris, such a move really makes people feel that Britain is the kind of country that does not change its face against the three countries. This has greatly boosted Britain's prestige, and the three countries cannot refuse. Because refusing will not only attract Britain's hostility, but will also dissolve the previous moral high ground position in Belgium. If they participate, they will face all kinds of British crusades. Britain is still Britain, and Palmerston is still the most powerful diplomatic master in Europe. William IV couldn't help but sigh at the other party's shrewdness, and hit the target as soon as he struck. Other countries are still a little tender in front of them, and even he who is familiar with history feels invisible pressure. I remember that this old guy seemed to have died in 1865, and with his death, Russell seemed to have retired from politics, and the power of the Whig Party fell into the hands of Clayston, and Disraeli of the Tory Party began a 20-year PK war with Clayston on the chessboard of British politics. However, how could he and the Netherlands led by Thorbecke be willing to be trapped in the small cage he set? Not only him, but also others such as William I. Bismarck and Napoleon III Olivier would not easily bow to him. It seems that the situation in Belgium can no longer be stopped, and it is necessary to cut the Gordian knot. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 will be released at 21:30 in the evening. Thank you for your support. Chapter 88 Customs Union between the Netherlands and Sweden. Before Palmerston arrived in Paris, the Netherlands made the first move. On April 18, 1862, King William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and Foreign Minister Hesbert von suddenly appeared in the Western Kingdom of Norway ruled by Sweden, and held a bilateral meeting with the Swedish King Carl XV and the country's Foreign Minister Ladvik in Oslo, the capital of Norway. After the closed-door meeting, Hesbert van den Ladwig officially announced to the outside world at a press conference that the Netherlands and Sweden had officially reached a customs union. For the specific regulations, both countries followed the practice of the North-South German customs union to become appropriate regulations for the two countries. We will abolish tariffs between the two countries, and trade between the two countries will be duty-free. For trade with other countries, a unified tariff system and tax rate will be implemented. At the same time, we will announce the tariff law later, but we have determined to use the Dutch tax law as a model to formulate tariff policies. All tariffs between the two countries will be abolished from July 1, 1862. In terms of foreign trade, both countries tend to free trade, but they will impose protective duties on cotton fabrics and woolen cloth from the British Empire, which are currently suffering from serious industrial dumping. The customs union of the two countries is also committed to establishing a unified currency exchange rate, measurement system and commercial regulations, especially agreeing to use the Dutch commercial law to implement common commercial regulations. Sweden also supports the Netherlands' newly established maritime court in The Hague and recognizes the court as an international authority. It is agreed that Sweden will arbitrate here when encountering disputes. The two countries also announced that they will establish a steel alliance. The Netherlands will invest in Swedish steel companies, and the two countries will jointly develop Swedish and Dutch iron ore mines. In short, we have established a complete economic alliance with the Netherlands, and politically, we also support the Netherlands' foreign policy. Carl XV explained at a press conference in Oslo. Your Majesty William IV, is what His Majesty Carl XV just said true? The two countries have reached such a level of progress in the customs union in a short time. Have the two countries been preparing for it for a long time? I am a reporter from the Norwegian Evening Post. The young William IV smiled at the reporter with a friendly smile, and this action immediately won the favor of many media present. This is what is meant by being elegant. First of all, this sudden visit, as everyone said, is not true. I have longed for Sweden for a long time. The Nordic style is a place where all Europeans linger. William IV looked at Carl XV with a smile, and the latter smiled at him. The tacit action of the two was quickly photographed by major media reporters. They all understood that this photo on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper would increase the thickness of their bonuses by several layers. Actually, Carl XV and I met several years ago in 1858 when I accompanied my father to Stockholm. But at that time, we were both crown princes. Now, 4 years have passed, and many things have happened to both of us, but our identities have changed. We are now in charge of a country, although perhaps in your eyes, our countries are not big countries but medium-sized countries, but we don't mind. Yes, what we care about is how to govern this medium-sized country well so that our people can enjoy the treatment of citizens of a medium-sized country with the identity of a medium-sized country. This is our ultimate goal. Your Majesty William IV, I'm Stephen, a reporter from the Financial Times. Aren't you afraid that the establishment of a customs union with Sweden will cause conflicts between the Netherlands and Sweden? For example, why do you think that establishing a customs union can benefit both sides? William IV looked at Stephen meaningfully, and then answered, this customs union will open up cooperation between the two countries. Sweden has 6 million people and Norway has 2.48 million people, with a total population of 8.5 million. The cold in the north is undeniable. The number of jobs in the Netherlands has increased, while the number of jobs in Sweden is relatively small. Therefore, the Netherlands needs workers and Sweden needs jobs. Sweden has industrial iron ore and steel, while the Netherlands has capital, technology, global shipping experience and cargo ships, and the Netherlands also has markets in the Far East. Our two medium-sized countries will form a reliable industrial chain, an industrial chain comparable to that of a big country. As long as it succeeds, our economic development should not be much weaker than other big countries. After all, the local population of the two countries combined is more than 14 million, which is not much less than that of Spain. After all, the population of those big countries is only about 30 million. Demographic dividend, technological dividend, geographical proximity, marine attributes, industrial complementarity, the same attributes of the Germanic race, similar status, consistent ideas, etc. Such a combination, why can't we complement each other to the extreme? Pa. Well said, William IV is absolutely right. Yes, the Netherlands and Sweden are naturally complementary. A developed economic country in Western Europe and Sweden, a Nordic mineral resource exporter, can naturally complement each other. With the influx of Dutch technology, Sweden will even make a huge leap in economy. In less than 10 years, it will definitely join the ranks of developed European countries. I don't think it will take 5 years. After all, the Netherlands is famous for its business skills, and Dutch companies are famous for being powerful. The East India Company that dominated Europe at that time alone was enough to make countries feel timid. If the Netherlands at that time had not only cared about making money and not military development and was eventually defeated and replaced by Britain, and if it had not been for the pressure from Britain that the Dutch East India Company and West India Company were forcibly dismantled and dissolved, the Netherlands would definitely still be the top country at this time. Let the past be the past. I only care about how Sweden's excess labor force will be settled by then. After seeing how powerful William IV was, the guy named Stephen from the Financial Times turned his attention to King Carl XVI of Sweden. Your Majesty, Carl XVI, with the establishment of the customs union between Sweden and the Netherlands. Seeing that Carl XVI listened quietly without changing color, Stephen asked, "It is well known that Sweden is a relatively weak country in Europe in terms of enterprise development. Your Majesty will not deny this, right?" Of course, Sweden is indeed one step behind, Carl XVI admitted honestly. In this case, Swedish enterprises have developed economic alliances with the Netherlands before they have developed. Take Prussia and the 18 North German countries as examples. The remaining 17 countries are now basically infiltrated by the Prussian economy. The 17 countries are trapped in an economic encirclement and dare not move. They oppose Prussia's current political struggle with the Austrian Empire. Does this reflect from the side that Sweden is not afraid that the Netherlands will do what Prussia does? Wow. I have seen bold people, but I have never seen anyone so bold as to raise such a provocative question in person. They looked up and saw that although Carl XVI still had a smile on his face, the expression of the foreign minister redoing next to him was no longer harmonious, but angry. Carl XVI waved his hand and calmly stopped Ludwig from ordering people to drive the reporters out. Carl XVI waited until the venue is quiet before he said, "Although Sweden is weak, our country has developed very quickly recently, and..." Carl XVI glanced at William IV, who was sitting next to him with a gentleman's smile, and said confidently, "Don't forget, we also have business giants in our country." Your Majesty, are you referring to the Wallenberg family and the Nobel family? Yes, is there a problem? The reporter was silent. Seeing this, William IV suddenly felt strange in his heart. Nobel and Wallenberg? These two families were the top world families until he was reborn in the future. One was invincible in reputation, and the other was the top in wealth in the world. These two families are still in the rising stage. I wonder if they can be brought under their control? At the same time, he felt deep admiration for Prussia. The world's first economic alliance was established by them in 1834. And many people think that Prussia is just Bismarck, but in fact, others are no worse than him. Veto this statement? You can't veto it. After all, Bismarck was still a young man in 1834. The German Customs Union, which was established in 1834 and gradually expanded, was the earliest customs union organization in the world. It played a role in promoting the economic development and political unification of the German Confederation at that time. Before the unification of Germany in 1870, there were many checkpoints within the states of the German Confederation, which hindered the development of industry and commerce. In 1818, Prussia took the lead in abolishing inland tariffs, and then established the North German Customs Union in 1826. The German Confederation was not an iron bucket, and they fought internally. Seeing that Prussia was getting closer to the countries of the North German Confederation because of this, the Kingdom of Bavaria, the headquarters, established the Central German Customs Union, and the Austrian Empire also established the South German Customs Union. A good German Confederation was divided into three parts. The North and South German Confederations, because of the two major countries of Prussia and Austria, gradually eroded Central Germany. Finally, the Kingdom of Bavaria could only lean towards Austria, dissatisfied with Prussia's poaching, so the current situation was formed. The South German Confederation is an economic alliance of 10 countries. The North German Economic Alliance is 18 countries. However, politically, Hanover in the North German Economic Alliance is still leaning towards Austria, while Saxony remains neutral. This is also the reason why Britain has an opportunity to intervene with the help of the Kingdom of Hanover in the German Confederation. Your Majesty William, I am Mendes, a reporter from the Russian Empire's Voice of Tsarist Russia. What I want to ask is that in the territorial transaction between the Netherlands and the Russian Empire in the Far East some time ago, the trading area between the two countries was too large, so that the Russian Empire believed that there was a risk of loss. I don't know, what do you think? If losses and gains can be divided into wins and losses at will, then there will not be so many disputes in the world. William IV said kindly, in fact, Alaska is very large. Everyone in the Dutch military territory will be more than twice as loud as before. Unfortunately, it is cold there and it is difficult for people to survive. Therefore, this is also the reason why Alexander II is willing to trade. Moreover, sometimes the value of ignorance cannot be measured from one angle. Just like the same 10 square kilometer island, if it is in the Arctic, naturally no one will care about it because it is too remote, but what if it is outside the port of St. Petersburg? I think that even if there is another Alaska peninsula, His Majesty Alexander II will agree to the transaction without hesitation, right? Chapter 3. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, a new member of the European Power Club? Prussia. It seems that Sweden can't help it. William IV is playing with fire. Bismarck's speech was unclear, which made the butler of the Prime Minister's office beside him unable to understand. Austrian Empire. The little guy in the Netherlands is playing tricks again. Emperor Franz Joseph I of the Austrian Empire looked at the telegram in a low voice, full of envy for the current development model of the Netherlands. Since his right-hand man Schwarzenberg died in 1852, and because Metternich was unwilling to engage in politics again, he no longer trusted others, so he no longer appointed prime ministers and took power alone. Unfortunately, without the help of professionals, he often went the wrong way. What he regretted most was that in the Crimean War launched by Tsarist Russia in 1853, he was too smart for his own good. He ignored the Tsarist Empire's consistent support for him in the past and mobilized the troops stationed in Galicia to the Tsarist Russian border, forcing Tsar Nicholas I to withdraw his troops from the Danube River on the front line, causing a permanent rift between the Tsarist Russian Empire and the Austrian Empire, the strongest fortress in the Holy Alliance. Even Tsar Nicholas I personally wrote an open letter, lamenting Austria's betrayal. I am the biggest fool in the world, and I actually expect others to repay my kindness. It would be fine if he was rewarded for helping Western European countries, but Western European countries regarded him as a treacherous person who tried to reap the benefits of others without working, because he did not directly declare war on the Russian Empire. In the end, he was not pleasing to both sides. Because of the complex financial distribution problems in the country with complex ethnic composition, he decided to cut military spending despite the opposition of the military, which reduced the size of the army. However, seeing the reduction of the Austrian army in the Kingdom of Italy, it fell into the trap of Italian King and Prime Minister Cavour and could not help declaring war on the Kingdom of Italy. However, he did not expect to catch the mouse and bring out the elephant. Napoleon III of France unexpectedly reversed his previous friendly look. With his declaration of war, he changed his face faster than turning a book, and suddenly drew his sword to help the weak Italy without any warning. France was well prepared. It carried out the first mobile railway transportation of troops in history, and quickly sent 100,000 French soldiers to the battlefield of the Kingdom of Italy. The punitive battle that was expected to be handled by the border guards turned into a main confrontation between the major powers. Even with the help of the German Confederation, including Prussia, which had harmonious relations with Austria at the time, Austria could not defeat the other side because France was too powerful. The three countries were all Catholic countries, but in the end they became hostile, which made him confused. Although he went to the front line in person, it was useless. The general's command was disorganized, which made him finally realize how ridiculous the reduction of military expenditure was. In the end, Austria was defeated in Solferino. Its defeat seriously damaged the military reputation of the Austrian Empire. In order to end it quickly, he accepted the Treaty of Freetown and ceded Lombardy to the Kingdom of Italy, which he despised. France obtained Savoy and Nice from Italy. At this moment, he knew that in the eyes of Napoleon III, religion might not be as good as interests. Paris, France. The Netherlands is betting on many sides, Your Majesty. It seems that not only us, But also our northern neighbor is not one of the loyal ones in the legend. Napoleon I sneered, I have never heard of any honest kings and politicians since ancient times. If there are, and they can get along well, then either this country is hopeless or it exists in another world. On a comfortable British official travel ship in the English Channel. He is indeed a quiet man. It is hard to imagine that he is only 22 years old. My health is getting worse and worse. I just don't know whether Claxton and Disraeli can check and balance the Netherlands in the future Britain after Russell leaves. If not. Palmerston's kind expression slowly disappeared, replaced by a cold, ruthless one. If the diplomatic talks fail, then the only way to get the Netherlands to talk is through military means. I am going to remove this unstable factor in the Netherlands before I die. In the Royal Palace of Oslo, the Kingdom of Norway. Victor Emmanuel II is a very remarkable person, especially since 1 year after he ascended the throne, the sharp-minded and resourceful Cavour became his prime minister to take care of everything for him. He was lucky and pleasantly surprised. Cavour has contributed a lot to Italy's current size. After Karl XV held a grand private banquet for William IV, he ordered his younger brother, Prince Oscar, the third son of former King Oscar I, to accompany William IV throughout the banquet. The two of them did not care about their respective identities. Thanks to Prince Oscar's erudition, he was able to use Dutch, which saved the need for a translator as a middleman. So in William IV's temporary office, there were only the two of them. I heard that France wants to hold the World Expo again. This time, there will be art and industrial products on display. It is claimed that there will be a chance for everyone to get together. Unfortunately, the travel expenses are a bit expensive. Your Majesty, didn't you say that the travel expenses for this trip will be fully covered by Napoleon III? Ha. I said that you are the younger brother of King Karl XV of the Kingdom of Sweden. Would you argue with Napoleon II for such a small travel expense? If it is true, the Kingdom of the Netherlands will definitely stand on your side. I will do what I say and I will never joke with you. The more he spoke, the brighter his smile and the louder his voice became. The person in front of him was the younger brother of King Karl XV of Sweden and the favorite son of the former King Osman I. However, he was ranked third in the order of succession. The second Prince Gustav died of a cold in Norway in the 1940s. The third was Prince Oscar in front of him, and the fourth was Prince August. However, his talent and learning were mediocre and he was not prominent in front of others. This man was deeply trusted by Karl XV. Just like now, he was brought along to almost all meetings. This trust had surpassed brotherhood. Many people in Sweden were dissatisfied. However, because Karl XV had a son and a daughter in 1852, but the prince died young in 1854 and had no more children, many people were nervous about this. Then, after Oscar I got married in 1858 and gave birth to 3 sons in just 4 years, a whirlwind of whose succession to the throne had already blown over Stockholm. Especially, if Karl XV did not stop him. So, Prince Oscar had the power of the crown prince. William IV remembered that after Karl XV died suddenly in 1872, it was Prince Oscar who succeeded to the throne as Oscar II. However, at that time, Karl XV's daughter Louisa had married to Denmark in 1869 and became the crown princess. His succession to the throne was understandable. However, what if Karl XV's daughter had not married? William IV quickly calculated that if his younger brother came to Sweden as a son-in-law, would it make the Netherlands closer? After all, the wife of Karl XV, the current Queen of Sweden, is his aunt, the youngest daughter of his grandfather William II. It is precisely because of this relationship that the two countries will proceed naturally. However, if the successor in front of him, his wife is from the Duchy of Nassau in the German Confederation, that is, the Dutch royal family's family, will this cause conflicts? It is said that the Queen of Karl XV has a bad relationship with a princess of this prince. Think about it, the Duchy of Nassau has always been respected by the Dutch royal family, and the others are collateral branches. His aunt became the Queen of Sweden, and Sophie, a collateral branch, became the princess. It was originally well behaved, but unfortunately the aunt did not have a boy, while Sophie gave birth to 3. Alice, every family has its own problems. However, the relationship between the Netherlands and Sweden must be reliable. For this reason, William IV will not be soft-hearted, even if the other party is also from the Orange Nassau family. In particular, he suspected that Karl XV died suddenly in 1872, and the reason was spread everywhere, but it was not true. Some people said that he died of illness, but conspiracy theorists said that it was the man in front of him who did it. William IV didn't know the details, but he was the most suspected. After all, don't forget it. The Duke of Southumberland, the only son of Karl XV, also died at a young age. It is said that he died suddenly. Just when everyone thought that Sweden and the Netherlands had just signed a customs union, it was already a huge news. The next day, April 19, 1862. The two countries once again attracted the attention of the world because the Netherlands and Sweden took a crucial step today. The foreign ministers of the two countries, Hespert van Ladwig, announced that Sweden and the Netherlands will hold the 3+3 strategy in turn in the two countries starting from July 1 this year in Sweden and January in the Netherlands. Refers to the meeting of the two countries' foreign ministers plus chiefs of general staff plus finance ministers, which is held every 6 months. What the outside world is most concerned about the two countries is that they have finally taken a step towards alliance and military cooperation. At the press conference, the foreign ministers of the two countries signed an agreement in front of reporters to jointly develop the next generation of naval warships. The signing of this document brought the entire press conference to a climax. Because this marks that their newspaper headlines can have one more piece of information, the Netherlands and Sweden have formed a military alliance. It is even a step further than an alliance, because other countries help fight when wars break out, while the Netherlands and Sweden have obviously included the development of weapons for war into the alliance system. This is unprecedented for other major alliance systems, which shows how high the trust between the two countries is. In addition, they also announced that the two sides had previously reached an agreement to cooperate in the field of integrating the forms of military services while conducting research and development in the next generation of army equipment. With the emergence of this news, Europe and even the United States were shocked. In addition to the British Empire, the French Empire, the Austrian Empire, the Russian Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia, which has already stepped into the club, with the emergence of the combined team of these two countries, will there be new members other than these 5 countries in the European Power Club? The monthly votes and recommendation votes are too few. Please continue to support us. Chapter 90 Jointly develop new warships? The defense ministries of the Netherlands and Sweden said at a press conference that the Netherlands and Sweden have signed a memorandum to determine that the two countries will jointly cooperate in the development of new warships and other maritime technologies in the next 5 years. The project is scheduled to start next month. The Netherlands will invest in design solutions for the early verification of the project, and Sweden will contribute 5 million Dutch guilders, £200,000. The location was chosen in the Amsterdam naval port. According to Swedish military sources, the development of new warships is a flagship project in the field of cooperation between the Netherlands and Sweden. According to them, this new warship will try to introduce the cannons of the Nobel family's company in terms of loading artillery, and the use of artillery mode is different from all current warships. It is not subversive, but at least an epoch-making change. According to the Swedish military, the development cost will be very high, but the kings of the two countries are very persistent, and the parliament has already approved this cooperation plan. Therefore, the two countries are very hard-working in cooperation. As the two countries get closer, the outside world is talking about it. An unnamed British naval officer said that with the joint development of the next generation of naval ships as an opportunity, the cooperation between the Netherlands and Sweden has reached the level achieved by all allies, which has set an example for other national alliances. This is very new, but it is also very dangerous for the UK. Because in the past, the financial resources and the huge size of the navy of the UK were enough to daunt other countries and voluntarily give way to the UK's dominance of the sea. However, if this model of the Netherlands and Sweden prevails, the cost will be greatly reduced. The value obtained is not much different from the UK's independent research and development and construction, which is an unequal competition for the investment ratio. After all, the research and development costs are similar. The cost difference between one country sharing and two countries sharing is very large, which will also save finances in disguise. Therefore, their cooperation is unimaginable. It has formed a devastating impact on the UK's leading position. The Dutch military said that this project has been around for a long time, but it has just been made public, and hopes that the outside world will not interpret it too much. Moreover, it will be difficult to succeed without 5 to 10 years before this new warship comes out and forms military power. They also mention that designing the warship is a very ambitious project, So it is crucial to join forces with like-minded partners. Based on the complementary technology and industrial strength of the Netherlands and Sweden, they will jointly explore the next generation of naval new combat technologies, which is different from the current combat system. They said that various new military services and equipment will be developed in joint operations to deal with the threats faced by the Netherlands and Sweden. Herman van Perron, a political expert of the European Times and dean of the School of Political Science at Leiden University in the Netherlands, believes that it is not surprising that the Netherlands and Sweden jointly develop the next generation of warships and other related technologies, and even jointly develop future warships. Due to the true meaning of steam-clad battleships, the current development difficulty and funding requirements are very high. At present, only the British Empire and the French Empire have the relevant technology and construction products in the late 1950s, and even the total number is only 2 or 3 in the single digit. Other countries, even if the United States is rumored to be building, the tonnage is very small, not enough to make people recognize that it has this capability. The 3 countries barely managed to launch only 1 ship a year, and the speed was slowly increasing. Now these countries are also struggling. Therefore, under the constraints of technology and financial resources, it is difficult for medium-sized countries such as the Netherlands and Sweden to bear it independently. At this time, the joint action of the 2 countries, the idea of the Netherlands and Sweden to jointly develop and manufacture with their own resources, is very reasonable. This is also the way forward for medium-sized countries. And most importantly, unlike Sweden, which lacks experience in independently developing contemporary warships, the Netherlands has been a maritime power and a shipbuilding power for nearly 3 or 4 centuries. It can be said that it is another complementary strategy. After all, Sweden's steel, especially special steel, is the best in the world. In addition, this joint development and production model will definitely achieve the expected effect, unless the 2 countries are not sincere in cooperation, because the Netherlands now has high-end shipbuilding technology, such as the first-class battleship that only 5 or 6 countries in the world have mastered. Therefore, the worst will be better than the current first-class sailing battleship, which is undoubtedly a huge gain for Sweden. This is a disguised transfer of the technology of the first-class sailing battleship from the Netherlands to the Swedish Navy, making Sweden a shipbuilding power all of a sudden. The Netherlands' goal may be Sweden's cutting-edge steel-making technology and steel production. Sweden is interested in the Netherlands' shipbuilding technology and capital strength. Both parties get what they need, and if the cooperation is good, both will make money. Therefore, it is hard to say whether the 2 sides are sincere in cooperation and whether they will use their assets to promote cooperation. Therefore, Herman van Perron believes that the joint action of the Netherlands and Sweden this time may be a test for subsequent cooperation. If the cooperation is good, he thinks that the 2 countries may conduct more friendly joint actions in the colonial hegemony around the world. The influence of the economic and military alliance between the Netherlands and Sweden is huge. Even in Europe, it is an earthquake-level existence. Needless to say, the Netherlands, if not all the major events that have happened in Europe recently, the Netherlands is involved in most of them, at least their interests are involved. Many people are more deeply positioned for the rise of the Netherlands. Coupled with a strong navy that is not inferior to first-class countries, it can be said that the Netherlands is not a first-class country, but it has the influence of a first-class country. It is a top country among medium-sized powers. This is also the reason why the tripartite agreement was established. Napoleon III of the French Empire and William I of the Kingdom of Prussia did not dare to despise the Netherlands. Sweden, like the Netherlands, once had a glorious history. The master of Northern Europe has repeatedly defeated Tsarist Russia. However, as the Tsarist Russia expanded its territory in the south and its population increased, it eventually counterattacked Sweden. It defeated Sweden many times in the late 18th century, and in 1809 at the beginning of the 19th century, it directly took away Finland from Sweden after defeating Sweden, forming the current situation where, except for the north, other places are across the sea from each other, and the 2 countries have been quiet for more than 50 years. However, after seizing Norway from Denmark in 1815, Sweden not only recovered its vitality, but also became more secure geographically. The military service method of all citizens has enabled Sweden to have more than 1 million soldiers capable of fighting, not counting the Norwegian part. Therefore, all European countries tacitly understood that they had never wanted to attack Sweden. Even the 3 kings of the Tsarist Empire, including Nicholas I, Alexander I, and Alexander II had never expressed such an idea. Because Sweden is too strong. Therefore, the establishment of the combination of the Netherlands and Sweden has made the major powers show a cautious attitude towards the Netherlands. Because of the combination of the two countries, the military threat is no weaker than any empire. So much so that William IV proudly said to his ministers, "From now on, we can do many things that were inconvenient to do before." Chapter 2. Chapter 91. We will not concede to Britain. When the news of the economic and military alliance between Sweden and the Netherlands in Oslo spread throughout Europe and even North America in just one day, it caused a lot of astonishment. April 19, 1862. Paris. Inside the Prussian embassy in France. Bismarck met a distinguished guest today, a distinguished guest that was both expected and unexpected. This person was the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Thorbecke, the legendary Prime Minister who was rumored to have angered William II so much that he abandoned the throne to his son, the current King of the Netherlands, William IV. Since Thorbecke came here, he has secretly observed that this person is very stable, yes, stable. In Prussia, the Minister of Military Affairs von Born played a stable role, which is why he cannot worry about the rear and join forces with Moltke to attack wherever he points. After all, Prussia has great ambitions, but the Netherlands now has an adventurous William IV. If a stable prime minister is added, it will benefit the Netherlands a lot. The two had just met and had not even had a sip of tea when they started to argue. Bismarck thought to himself, "Let me test how much you can do first." Bismarck, the Netherlands has been making a lot of moves recently, which is dazzling, but the benefits are so great that Prussia is envious. Prussia wants to cut off the benefits of the Netherlands. As Pearson said, this guy has nothing to do, so he likes to attack others all the time for no reason. As Your Majesty said, this guy can't sit still. Thorbecke responded with a smile, Prussia's ambitions are not small. The northern part of the German Confederation has almost become a province under the leadership of Prime Minister Bismarck. It can be seen that the implementation of Prussia's North German Customs Union is indeed extraordinary. I recently received a letter from the heads of government of the Grand Duchy of Saxony and the Kingdom of Hanover. They propose to enter into a strategic agreement with the Duchy of Luxembourg under the jurisdiction of the Netherlands, which is also a member of the German Confederation. However, the Netherlands is still considering it. After all, the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Prussia are allies now, aren't they? Using the German Customs Union to threaten me with internal fighting? Bismarck would not admit defeat. The two countries are naturally allies, but I heard that what the Netherlands did in South Africa was a bit unfair. We in France used real money and local soldiers to support the Transvaal Republic, while the Netherlands used the East Indian Indigenous Army. The Netherlands made us in France uncomfortable. Here it comes. Thorbecke said calmly, "That's wrong. Starting from January 1st this year, our Kingdom of the Netherlands has enacted legislation. Our Great Majesty William IV personally signed the bill. As long as the nationality is Dutch, no matter where they come from, we recognize their status as citizens of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. There are tens of millions of indigenous people and other ethnic groups in East India. Now, after the promulgation of this bill, these people are all Dutch citizens." At this point, Thorbecke looked up at Bismarck and said proudly, "Therefore, the current population of the Netherlands is 16 million, not the previous 6 million. The Netherlands actually took in all those indigenous people?" Bismarck was surprised. "Those who are not of my race must have different hearts. Do people of other skin colors who are not white really share the same beliefs as the Dutch? Does the Dutch trust their loyalty? In this way, the Netherlands has become a populous country." However, Bismarck said with a slight sneer, "Sweden no longer has a population advantage in the Dutch-Swedish alliance." Thorbecke, in fact, the relationship between Sweden and the Netherlands is simple, and the alliance is deeply rooted. It is the three of us who are calculating our own interests, just like this time Prussia actually helped France choose African colonies. Bismarck asked seriously with a confused look on his face, "What do you mean, sir? Is there any problem? If so, I will definitely feed back your opinions to Our Majesty William I. Thorbecke, in this case, I really have something to say. I heard that many people in Schleswig and Holstein in Denmark are intending to oppose the rule of Denmark. It is said that they are of Prussian descent, and I heard that they are using the banner of Prussia to split Denmark." Actually pointed the gun at Schleswig and Holstein. Bismarck looked at Thorbecke, who was drinking tea with his head down, with doubt. "I just don't know how much he knows." Will he guess the plan between me and King William I of Prussia? For a moment, Bismarck's thinking made the office where the two of them were suddenly very quiet. The atmosphere was solemn, but Thorbecke didn't care and continued to sip the tea carefully, as if he was tasting the best of the world. After a moment, Bismarck asked Thorbecke more seriously than ever before, "I wonder what benefits do you think Prussia can gain for the Netherlands in this meeting of the four prime ministers?" Finally confessed. Thorbecke showed a sincere smile and said, "I think the Netherlands can replace the king of the Kingdom of Greece. Our former King William I is a good candidate." After Bismarck was stunned after hearing this, he looked at Thorbecke strangely. "Your Excellency will not be prepared to exile the former king thousands of miles away because of the conflict with His Majesty William I. Thorbecke first saw the curiosity revealed in Bismarck's eyes, and then realized that the entire European upper class knew about his relationship with William I. So he smiled bitterly and said, "How can I have such ability? This is what Her Majesty wants. You know, Our Majesty is still single and has no children." When Bismarck heard this, he immediately thought, William IV of the Netherlands has a king and a little prince, but His Majesty William IV is single. William IV had a good idea. He arranged William II to the Kingdom of Greece, which has a status and territory no less than the Netherlands and a longer history. In this way, William II's power in the Kingdom of the Netherlands was cut off, and the entire Netherlands could be completely controlled. The more Bismarck thought about it, the more curious and amazed he was about William IV. What can Prussia get? Although he was amazed, the actual benefits were what he valued. If Prussia can lead the northern part of the German Confederation to support us, when Prussia seizes Schleswig and Holstein in the future, Thorbecke said heavily, the Netherlands will definitely support Prussia's position. Holding back his inner restlessness and the shock that Thorbecke actually knew his plan, Bismarck said, "What if we don't support it?" Thorbecke smiled and said, "Then I think Denmark can ask Sweden to form a Nordic alliance, which should be a matter of next month. If the Nordic alliance is formed, Prussia will not only face Denmark, which has a population of about 2 million, but also Sweden and Norway, which originally belonged to the Kalmar Union. The three countries together have a population of more than 10 million, and Sweden and Denmark are so close that Sweden can support Denmark at any time. In this way, this is contrary to the strategy of rapid occupation that he and William I had formulated at the beginning, which made European countries react and became a reality. It seems that Your Excellency and His Majesty William IV have taken us for granted." Bismarck stared at Thorbecke with sharp eyes and a bitter smile. Unruly. As expected, he is a man with huge ambitions, just as Your Majesty said. How could such a person be content with mediocrity? Cooperation is only beneficial to both sides. Don't forget, I am also helping the Kingdom of Prussia. Bismarck looked at Thorbecke in confusion, waiting for his explanation. Don't forget, the current ruler of the Kingdom of Greece is Prince Otto of the Kingdom of Bavaria, who hates Prussia the most in the German Confederation and is also the vanguard of the Austrian Empire. If Prussia's ally the Netherlands can replace him, then can the Prussian royal palace reduce the strength of the South German Confederation and the Middle German Confederation. It's true. Bismarck smiled and said, as expected of the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, I have always been very fond of Pearson. What I didn't expect is that the political elites of the Netherlands seem to have reached an eruption period, and there are so many of them. It seems that European countries have underestimated the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It seems that things that countries suffer losses in the future will happen frequently. Thorbecke knew that Prussia's support for William II to succeed Otto as the King of Greece was a success. On April 20, 1862, French Prime Minister Olivier, Prussian Prime Minister Bismarck, and Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke will hold talks with British Prime Minister Henry John Tapper, also known as Viscount Palmerston, in Paris, the capital of the French Empire. But on April 19, 1862, on the eve of the talks, French Foreign Minister Marc said that the French Empire would not make any concessions on the situation in the Kingdom of Belgium and the security of the French in the Transvaal Republic in South Africa. This man, who is known for his toughness within the French government and is in charge of the French diplomatic system, directly expressed his disappointment with the British Empire's unchanging signals so far, such as supporting the Kingdom of Belgium and implementing its current policies, the British Army's brutal actions in South Africa, and the attack on the Transvaal Republic. Marc also clearly told the newspaper reporters from various countries who had already arrived in Paris, "We will not make any concessions to the British. This is the will of our France, and it is also the view that the Netherlands and Prussia believe should be upheld. Therefore, as you just heard, concessions to Britain are completely ruled out. The accompanying Deputy Foreign Minister of the Netherlands, Benin, also said, "We are disappointed with the signals sent from London and Brussels in the past few days." Before this meeting, the three countries had condemned Britain's military actions against the Republic of Transvaal and the Republic of Orange Free State in South Africa. The two sides have been deadlocked on this issue for several weeks. The two sides have different views on the development of the situation in Belgium, which has led to sharp deterioration in relations. Both sides are working hard to prevent the situation from further deteriorating. Prussian Prime Minister's spokesman Rabe said that it is entirely possible that the four countries will suddenly end the escalating dispute after this meeting. "We can't rule out anything. This is a completely possible situation, just as we think the British should not have illusions about this. Yesterday, I had something to do and could only write 2 chapters, but today there are 3 chapters. This is the first chapter. Thanks to the book friends who voted for the monthly ticket and recommendation ticket yesterday, and also thanks to users Maoang, Chuksan, Chilling Jigafen, Book Friend 202704231623477774, Book Friend 202010131842589194, Ajing, and thank you for your rewards. Especially thank you to Book Friend 202010131842589194 for his silent support and becoming the first owner of this book. Please continue to support. Thank you. Chapter 92, Unhesitating Risk. When the crisis between the three countries and Britain due to the situation in the Kingdom of Belgium and South Africa intensified, Britain proposed this meeting. Before the meeting started, France, Prussia, and the Netherlands asked Britain to promise not to attack the Transvaal Republic in South Africa and remain neutral in the situation in the Kingdom of Belgium. However, Britain did not directly respond to the concerns raised by the three countries. Instead, it only said that in order to ease the tensions with France and the other two countries, the four countries will stage a historic meeting of the prime ministers of the four countries in Paris. The British Prime Minister will hold a 1-on-3 multilateral meeting and a 1-on-1 bilateral meeting with the prime ministers of the three countries respectively. For this reason, Paris has become the focus of world attention in the past few days. During this period, Oslo, Sweden and Norway, has only lost some of its brilliance because of the sensation caused by the alliance between the Netherlands and Sweden. How will the situation in Belgium evolve? The special reception room in the Dutch consulate in Oslo is his temporary office and resting place. William Ivey waited for the results of the Paris conference and asked himself some questions. The meeting of the prime ministers of Britain, France, Prussia and the Netherlands in Paris is about to begin. What changes will this meeting bring? How will Belgium develop? This issue is not decided by Berlin, the capital of the Kingdom of Prussia, nor by Paris or Amsterdam, but by Queen Victoria of the British Empire and Prime Minister Viscount Palmerston. Regardless of whether other parties admit it or not, and regardless of how good Viscount Palmerston and Queen Victoria are in international diplomacy, there are 2 points that the international community must recognize. First, in other European countries that Britain supports independence, it is basically still the sphere of influence of Britain, although these countries currently have daily diplomatic relations with various countries. Other countries besides Britain have also strengthened their political or economic presence in these countries in various ways. However, in terms of geopolitics and national security, most of these countries still believe that Britain is the boss of the region and recognize Britain as the protectorate. Britain's influence on these countries cannot be replaced even by France, the Russian Empire and the Austrian Empire. The most famous of them is the Kingdom of Italy. France sent troops and diplomatic relations, but in the end it was Britain that won the Kingdom of Italy's allegiance. Just like Belgium, although the Netherlands and France have an overwhelming ethnic group in Belgium, the two countries cannot replace the country's pro-British policy. The Netherlands has been eyeing to take back its homeland for 30 years, but it is still difficult to take it. Since the Vienna Peace Conference in 1815, although the victorious countries have been striving to make the areas once ruled by Napoleon their sphere of influence, countries have been fighting fiercely for influence. When they cannot get it, they take the opportunity to support the major families within the other party's power to rise up and become new kingdoms and duchies in an attempt to reduce the other party's strength. Britain also took the opportunity to win many new allies, such as Portugal, Belgium, Hanover, Saxony, Italy, etc. Although these countries sometimes waver in their positions in the struggle between Britain and other countries, from the final results of each time, their final choice will be Britain's side. They still recognize Britain's status as the world's largest power and acknowledge that Britain's balancing strategy on the European continent is beneficial to them. They also believe that Britain will never easily give up its leading position in the balancing role in Europe. These small countries are used by Britain to check and balance the big countries. If they are damaged, Britain's strategic interests will also be damaged, affecting their own interests and even causing turmoil to be transmitted to London. Therefore, the Kingdom of Belgium is not happy to see the unrest caused by internal factions, especially the attacks on opponents when the general election comes, and the riots that follow. Even Britain will not allow the country to eventually disintegrate. In fact, if countries such as France and the Netherlands really want to take action, they have many tools and multiple options if they want to interfere. As long as the two countries unite, Belgium and Britain may not be able to suppress it forcefully, let alone continue to rule. However, neither country is willing to offend Britain for this. The second point that cannot be ignored is Palmerston and Queen Victoria. Both of them dare to think and act. When it is time to take action, they will never be soft-hearted or hesitate. Not only do they dare to engage in international struggles, but Palmerston is also the best at international struggles. Faced with such a strong combination, France is also facing the continued deterioration of France's international bilateral and multilateral relations in recent years. France's internal propaganda requires the French people to fight for dignity, but when facing Britain, we actually handed over the Suez Canal. In the face of major dangers and powerful opponents, it is unrealistic to want to live a peaceful life and not want to fight. The Kingdom of the Netherlands must dare to fight. Only by taking the initiative to fight and resolutely fighting can there be a way to survive, win dignity and seek development. Retreating, escaping, compromising and giving in will only lead to you and humiliation, and can only be a dead end. In the previous life, the ancient military strategy said, a good fighter stands in a place where he must lose, but does not lose the enemy's defeat. However, William Ivey lamented that in the real international politics of later generations, the one who can truly understand the essence of these words, put them into practical actions, and achieve results in maintaining and expanding national interests is the successor of the Russian Empire, the great power in the north of the country. Why? PJ's national governance capacity does have shortcomings. His country's economy did not improve at that time, but continued to shrink. If it were not for the fact that his country was sparsely populated and could feed the country by selling oil and arms, otherwise the people would have to eat dirt. However, at the international political level, with such a weak economy, his country did not fall into chaos. Instead, it took action in Syria, Ukraine, South Ossetia, etc., and expanded the territory of his country in adversity. Moreover, in the conflict between India and the United States, he played the role of mediator that the United States could not play in the future. After successfully defending and expanding the national security border, he had in the most intense conflict between the United States and the United States, forcing the presidents of the United States to take the initiative to show goodwill for several consecutive 20 years and to voluntarily propose to adjust and ease the relationship between the United States and his country. From this, William Ivey can see PJ's politics. How powerful his skills are. William Ivey, judging from this man's character and his previous experience in dealing with similar issues, knew that in international and regional political conflicts, if there was a need to safeguard his national security and interests, including the use of military means, he would never hesitate. Without hesitation, William Ivey's expression became more and more determined. Come, call all the Privy Council members except those in Paris to a meeting, emergency level, the highest level 5 stars. Chapter 2. Today is Monday, welcome to vote for support. Chapter 93, Wind Rising in Belgium. In a speech at the Belgian Parliament on April 5 last year, former Belgian Prime Minister Orbán gave a high score of 85 for the overall performance of his cabinet team. However, this self-evaluation was questioned by the opposition Catholic party's Merland, and the two sides started a war of words. Even in this Belgian local election and Prime Minister election, there are also many people from the opposition party who expressed their dissatisfaction. In particular, the recent scandal about the Orbán family has made the Catholic Party pursue the victory and go all out, leaving Orbán no chance to deny the truth. With Orbán's resignation, Leopold I directly served as Prime Minister, ignoring the Catholic Party and the Liberal Party's request for early national elections. Leopold I believed that the date of the general election could not be decided by the two parties alone, and the royal king had the final say. So the original dispute between the two parties turned into a dispute between the two parties and the royal family on this issue, and neither side gave in. Over the past half-month, the two parties have been exchanging verbal attacks. In fact, the professional departments of the government and civil organizations have issued warnings. However, from the cabinet government and local governments of the Kingdom of Belgium, from the ruling and opposition parties to the general public, everyone paid special attention to this warning. It was not until the heavy rains caused the low-lying areas in the north and south of the Kingdom of Belgium to be flooded, and the south was flooded in the north, south, east and west due to the lack of water conservancy, that everyone realized the seriousness of the situation. But it was too late, because on December 18, 1861, the floods rose sharply, and nearly half of the provinces in Belgium became victims of the floods. With the information transmitted by the public and newspapers, everyone realized that the Kingdom of Belgium had become the country with the most serious flood disasters in Europe. The first wave of floods in the Flemish region in the north had not been eliminated, and most of the Walloon region in the south began to have heavy rains for several days, and the second wave of floods began in early December 1861. The disaster area this time was from the Hainaut province in the Walloon region to the east to the Liege province. The affected areas did not gradually improve until February 5, 1862 as the rainfall decreased. In the past, this time of year was always a season of heavy rains, but this year the situation was obviously different from the past, and the rainfall was more than 20% higher than in the past. According to news reports, the floods had caused 2,300 deaths and 600 missing people by the end of January this year. The cumulative number of victims affected exceeded 200,000, of which 15,000 had returned to their homes to rebuild. Is it a natural disaster or a man-made disaster? On April 19, with an article titled Standard, the Belgian cabinet authorities were criticized for their ineffective and negligent disaster relief on the front page. As other newspapers followed suit, almost all influential newspapers in Belgium, including the Flemish and Walloon regions, stood on a united front, pointing their guns at the cabinet members formed by former Prime Minister Orbán. With Orbán's resignation, these newspapers were secretly pointing their spearheads at Leopold I, who now accepted the leadership of the cabinet. April 20, 1862, this day was destined to become a chapter that might be recorded in European history textbooks. In Paris, the capital of the French Empire, a four-nation conference of two old European powers, a medium-sized country, and an emerging power is being held. The content of their discussion is enough to change the development process of Europe and will have an immeasurable impact on other countries that did not attend the conference. If the talks are settled, then other European countries can continue to develop the current situation. If the talks fail, then Europe will be shaken. The Austrian Empire and the Kingdom of Italy prepared by Britain will be the opponents that the three countries of France, the Netherlands and Prussia have to face. From then on, the days of the three countries will not be so easy. However, this conference is destined to be unstable, and incidents that grab their attention are frequent. The Dutch-Swiss alliance on the 17th caused a shock in Europe. This has made people feel that before this four-party meeting, the King of the Netherlands, who could only sit on the edge of the table, has increased his weight with the Dutch-Swiss alliance and actually occupied a side of the four-party table steadily, making Thorbecke, the Dutch Prime Minister, equal to the Prime Ministers of other countries. This can be seen from the French reception, which has been held in accordance with Bismarck's specifications for Thorbecke. The meeting started on the morning of the 20th and stopped at noon. The main negotiation this morning was the confrontation between the Transvaal Republic and the Orange Free State in South Africa and the British Army. After a morning of negotiations, no one compromised. Just as they were preparing to continue the negotiations in the afternoon after a break, a piece of news came from Belgium in the north that made all parties change color. The appearance of this news broke the atmosphere of the talks and made several heads of the talks change color. Leopold I was shot dead. On April 20, 1862, Leopold I, the founding king of Belgium and uncle of Queen Victoria, was in Brussels during a public visit to the people suffering from the flood. He was shot in the head by a man who suffered heavy losses from the flood. A generation of the founding king of Belgium fell. He did many things that had a great impact on future generations during his lifetime, such as the establishment of the Kingdom of Belgium, helping to build the first European railway from Brussels to Mechelen, which opened in 1835. In 1840, He facilitated the marriage of his niece Queen Victoria and his nephew Prince Albert. In 1842, he gave a speech on labor laws to control women and children. He died unexpectedly at the age of 72. As the news spread from Belgium to the entire European continent on both sides of the Atlantic, Queen Victoria was furious, and other countries condemned the atrocities of the perpetrators and counted as crimes. Unfortunately, after the man shot Leopold I, he directly swallowed the gun and committed suicide. The Belgian royal family could only be angry and look for the body to take back to prepare for future generations. However, before that, the Belgian parliament formally passed the appointment draft, with Crown Prince Leopold as the new king, called Leopold II, to take over the cabinet. As a result, conspiracy theories began to rise in Belgium again, and the news that Leopold II was the murderer of his father could not be stopped. At this time, a large number of people in the Flemish region of Belgium began to be dissatisfied with the implementation of disaster relief work. So on 1862, almost all the northern provinces asked the cabinet to punish those who failed to provide disaster relief, and at the same time asked the cabinet to take out £10 million of financial support to the people affected by the disaster. How can this be? The birds that sing get the worms. The provinces of the Wallonia region in the south are naturally unwilling to lag behind, so they also proposed that because the disaster is more extensive than the north, they asked the cabinet in Brussels to provide more than £20 million. Belgium's finances have just been in surplus in recent years, but it is just right. How can there be so much financial support? So the Ministry of Finance is naturally poor. Although Leopold I had learned to govern the country with Leopold I before, how could he understand the truth that he did not understand the reason when he was not in his position? So after becoming king, he discovered the difficulties of the king and the financial difficulties, so he acquiesced to the Ministry of Finance's crying poor. On April 25, 1862, without seeing even a penny, people in the two places began to make trouble. Finally, on April 28, the talks in Paris were repeatedly extended because of the lack of agreement. When Leopold I had not yet completely mastered the military and political power in Belgium. In the Wallonia and Flemish regions, a small number of people unexpectedly broke out at the same time, demanding to break away from the unscrupulous rule of Brussels, to establish their own country or to join the Netherlands or France. The slogan was just four simple words: self-reliance, self-help. Chapter 3. Chapter 94 Dutch-Russian military exercises. 1862, Napoleon II of the French Empire stood up to accuse the Leopold family, saying, "The people in the French-speaking and Dutch-speaking areas of Belgium have legitimate demands for unrest, such as Leopold I's long-term self-rule, Prime Minister Orban's political corruption, and the poor economic and people's livelihood. However, these demands seem pale and powerless in the face of cold real politics. As long as the British Empire endorses the Belgian royal family and cabinet, this unrest will be difficult to sustain. Although Belgian politics may make some changes after the unrest, as a whole, it is difficult to be acquitted by the current dissatisfied demonstrators." Following him, Herman van Peron's opinion, once it was published in the European Times, instantly became the world's top current affairs commentator and the highest paid person for top newspapers in various countries in the world. He said that it was not only His Majesty Napoleon III who made such negative comments on Great Britain and Belgium. The comments of the international community also pointed out the toughness and bellicosity of the British Empire, the confrontation between the British Empire and the Triple Alliance, and even the confrontation with the public opinion of the whole of Europe. However, they ignored an important issue reflected by this crisis, that is, the expansionism of Great Britain was not only overseas, but also in Europe. The British Empire was also quietly rising on the European continent and gaining power. Recently, the situation in the north and south of Belgium has heated up again. On the one hand, the Netherlands and France are massing troops on a large scale on the border between the two countries in Belgium, and supporting the pro-Dutch local governments and armed forces in the north and the pro-French local governments and armed forces in the south. On the other hand, France, the Netherlands, Prussia and other countries that are dissatisfied with Great Britain have issued strong warnings to the British Empire for wanting to send troops to Belgium, and Leopold I was also actively preparing for war before. It was precisely this situation that became more and more tense. For a time, Belgium was shrouded in war clouds, and there was a tendency for a large-scale war to break out, which attracted great attention from European countries and even America and other continents. The comments of various countries are mostly pointing to the toughness of Great Britain and the expansion of its maritime hegemony, as well as the staged confrontation between France, the Netherlands and Great Britain, but they have overlooked an important issue reflected in this crisis. Great Britain's imperial expansionism is an important and rising political force in Britain today. They are called extreme nationalists in the British Isles, and are also commonly referred to and abbreviated as emperors. They advocate that Great Britain should establish a ruling area on the European continent to prevent the European countries from eroding the British Isles. In other parts of the world, we should try our best to prevent European powers from participating in the division of colonies and regain the overlapping glory of Portugal, Spain and the Netherlands. The important members of the current ruling party of the British Empire, the Chancellor of the Exchequer Gladstone, and the deputy leader of the opposition Tory party Disraeli, are both representatives of the Royal British Organization. Disraeli claimed that Great Britain should go all the way west and stop when the local indigenous peoples in America spontaneously oppose us, and the rest is not our land. Clayton believed that we should go all the way eastward and beat all countries until they trembled at the sight of the Union Jack, which would prove that we could dominate the world and that Great Britain would become the greatest global power. This was not just a slogan, but a goal that had already been achieved. It was under the instigation of the two-party rule of Clayton and Disraeli that the older generation of Royal British in Great Britain launched actions to support the independence of Belgium and Italy in order to weaken the strength of Great Britain's opponents so that Great Britain could invade these weak powers at the lowest cost at some point in the future. These actions were implemented and achieved considerable success. However, they also seriously deteriorated the relations between Britain and the Netherlands, Britain and Russia, and Britain and Austria. Even Britain's actions in Norway in the past few years angered Sweden. These actions of Great Britain and Britain intensified the confrontation between Great Britain and the great powers of Eastern Europe, leading to the further isolation of the British Empire from the great powers of the European continent. The rise of the Royal British forces represented by Claxton and Disraeli, who have now begun to take over the older generation of Royal British, is a chemical product born after Great Britain's rapid economic development, highly centralized politics, the pride of the people, and the synchronization of the royal family and the cabinet. As the Netherlands was defeated by the British Empire in the 17th and 18th centuries, Great Britain gained hegemony over the North Atlantic, including the North Sea and Northern Europe, so it invaded North America, drove away the Netherlands and France in Southern Europe, which had already established their sphere of influence there, and finally occupied the entire North American continent alone. At this time, it faced the Spanish Empire, the largest maritime hegemon in the South Atlantic, because Spain also occupied Latin America in the South Atlantic. Because the two countries had won and lost half of the wars in the 17th century, they were secretly weakening each other's strength. Spain's strength made Britain cautious and stopped at North America. But Spain and France's hatred for Great Britain was enough to support the United States during its independence period. The strategic intention was also realized in the United States, because the establishment of the United States cut off Great Britain's delusion of going south to Latin America. A United States that hated Great Britain had stopped the British Empire in Canada. It was under such circumstances that the Royal British urgently needed psychological comfort and spiritual sustenance. The setbacks in North America also made them full of resentment. So the British Empire expanded eastward, and the West was not bright. The Indian subcontinent became the target of Great Britain. In the end, the forces of Portugal, Spain and even the Netherlands were driven away, and the Indian subcontinent was dominated by itself, becoming the pearl on Great Britain's head. However, because of this, as Great Britain's offshore balancer succeeded repeatedly, it benefited more and more. However, the European countries were not fools. So as the situation in Belgium became more and more serious, the general turn of European countries distanced themselves from it, which made the British Empire feel like a thorn in the back. In this context, the cabinets of the two-party leaders who ruled with stronger policies all took the glory of the empire as their goal and began to use the growing prosperity of national democracy as a source of votes. They tried to gain domestic influence through external expansion and domestic elections, and use national strengthening shots to heal the lost people at the bottom of society in Great Britain. There are many well-known supporters of the Royal British ideology, including the famous writer Dickens, and many other celebrities. It is worth noting that the British Prime Minister Viscount Palmerston is not 100% Royal British, but a strong and pragmatic iron-willed figure. Viscount Palmerston in Paris. Now he is full of anger, angry about what happened in Belgium and everything came too suddenly. Leopold died just like that? Queen Victoria must be very angry, right? And what exactly did the French countries mean? They chose to order the fire against Belgium during the negotiations, when he was still negotiating with the heads of government of several countries in Paris, which was obviously to increase the bargaining chips in the negotiations. What Viscount Palmerston could not figure out the most was that the Netherlands had actually formed an alliance with Sweden. Was this really what the newspapers said, that the Netherlands was just trying to embolden themselves in the negotiations? These revealed too many things that he could not understand, so much so that now he was somewhat confused about the goals and bottom lines of various countries. This negotiation is the most difficult one I have ever had in the diplomatic world. Thinking of the domestic situation, he could not help but think of the Royal British Organization that gave him a headache. Palmerston did not agree to wage war against foreign countries. He preferred to defend the existing territory of Great Britain and resist the growing influence of the European continent. However, he had to accept some of the Royal British propositions in order to gain the support of the Royal British forces. With the confirmation that the two-party overtimers, Claxton and Disraeli, are both core members of the Royal British Organization, the power of the Royal British will rise further. Palmerston sometimes found it difficult to control himself, and even Russell complained to others privately that the Royal British was too powerful. Just like the situation in Belgium this time, if he was in charge, he would definitely jump out of this circle first, and then disrupt the situation as a neutral person, so that he could legitimately intervene in the Belgian situation, instead of being forced to stand with Belgium and become the object of condemnation by European countries like now. In particular, sending troops to land on the European continent is a bad move. Doing without saying and saying without doing have a world of difference in results. The Royal British to a certain extent disobeyed Viscount Palmerston's policy of slowing down and not expanding the policy in Belgium. It is right to take things slowly. They forced Viscount Palmerston to finally admit in the negotiations that the policy of supporting Belgium put him in a passive position in the negotiations. In order to avoid further pushing the situation to an irreversible situation, he did not want to further confront Western European countries. It seems that when he returns to China this time, he has to tighten the power of the Royal British. It's time to end the negotiations, Viscount Palmerston murmured, eager to return home. On May 1, 1862, the French Empire officially sent troops to the three southern provinces. Britain protested, Brussels condemned, the Netherlands welcomed it, Prussia remained silent, and all European countries were silent. The Netherlands also sent troops to the northern provinces of Limburg and Antwerp on May 2. This time, Britain summoned the Dutch ambassador to Downing Street to protest in person, and stated that the British Empire would take actions against the Netherlands at any time to show support for Belgium. On May 3, 1862, Russian Empire Foreign Minister Gorchakov visited the Netherlands. The two countries announced that they would hold more maritime exercises between the two countries in the Baltic Sea and the North Sea, and invited Sweden, Prussia, France and Austria to observe as observers. The naval exercise was code-named the Viper Naval Exercise. The two countries also announced, Chapter 95, the situation out of control. The Belgian riots had just gotten out of control the day before, and the Flemish newspapers and major organizations led by the Netherlands did their best to publicize them. The Walloon region in the south was not to be outdone, and used all its strength to step up its support for the demands of these French people. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the people behind this were the Netherlands and France. However, the development of the situation has shifted the focus of Europe from Paris to Brussels. At 10 a.m. on April 27, 50,000 people gathered in Mons, the worst-hit city in Hainaut province. They officially announced their independence from Belgian jurisdiction and asked France to send troops for support. Namur province and Luxembourg province followed Hainaut province and declared independence. These three southern French-speaking provinces seemed to stimulate other provinces in the Dutch-speaking region in the north. On April 28, the province of Antwerp actually held a public protest, and more than 80% of the province's population chose to support separation from Belgium. At the same time, a gathering of more than 100,000 people was held, expressing their loyalty to William IV of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and no longer trusting the ruling ability of the Leopold family. On the same afternoon, Limburg province, led by the local government, also announced that it no longer belonged to Belgium, and claimed that this was the choice of the people of Limburg province. I hope that no one will stand on the enemy side of Limburg province. At the same time, they announced that they would be under the jurisdiction of the Netherlands from now on. Not only these 5 provinces, but other provinces are also carrying out various dissatisfactions with the Belgian cabinet and the royal family. In short, at this moment, Belgium has encountered the most serious moment of division in history. On April 29, the British Foreign Office finally spoke out about this matter. At a press conference, John Russell condemned the assassination of Leopold I, and at the same time, his support for the Belgian royal family remained unchanged. He asked the Belgian provinces to maintain respect for the Belgian royal family and stated that Britain would send a security force to support Brussels soon. The Netherlands and France simultaneously expressed opposition to the British Foreign Secretary Russell's announcement to send troops to Belgium. The 2 foreign ministries said they would not be afraid of the terror of British warships, and Prussia also responded positively to the Prussians and Liege provinces' request for help. They also expressed dissatisfaction with the fact that Britain was still maintaining the territorial integrity of Belgium at this time. Sweden even stood up at this time to express its strong agreement with the views of the 3 countries. Belgium was born out of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Now the people's opinions are so strong that a forced melon is not sweet. Sweden suggested that Belgium should suffer a short pain rather than a long pain. Cut off the tumor and concentrate on development. This is the future direction of Belgium. If it's not your son, you don't know how to feel pain. This is what many people think of Sweden after saying this. This situation is too weird, Alexander I said to his foreign minister Alexander Mihailovich Gorchakov with a solemn look in his eyes. However, Gorchakov's eyes were full of passion, and he said, "Your Majesty, in this Europe where Metternich is no longer in power, such a strange thing means that the European continent will be in chaos. Isn't this what your Majesty and the previous kings have been looking forward to?" Alexander I was stunned, and then understood what he meant. "Your Majesty, Viscount Palmerston has been in Paris for more than a week and is in a dilemma. Therefore, our Tsarist Russian Empire can do a lot." "Oh, I would like to hear it." As a well-informed European political figure, coupled with Gorchakov's own outstanding education, and his long-term work in embassies of various European countries, and his wit created by years of immersion in diplomacy, Gorchakov served as foreign minister after the Crimean War ended in 1856, when Tsarist Russia faced an important turning point. At that time, the Tsarist Russian Empire had considerable conflicts with Britain, France, and Austria. Gorchakov first took advantage of the opportunity of the Kingdom of Sardinia's independence from Austria to get close to the French Empire, which brought a glimmer of hope to the Russian-French relationship. Then he took advantage of the Polish issue to establish a military agreement with Prussia, which also occupied part of Polish territory, and continued to establish friendly relations between Russia and Prussia. In Europe at that time, Gorchakov was one of the few diplomatic figures who could stand on equal footing with Viscount Palmerston. The rapprochement between Russia and Prussia had the effect of weakening Britain's influence, which made Britain quite uneasy about the foreign minister of Tsarist Russia. "Your Majesty, the Russian Empire can do anything that will make Britain uneasy and reduce Britain's influence. For example, Belgium this time is a very good strategy against Britain. As long as it is used well, Britain's influence will definitely drop by more than 2 levels. As William IV told us, the world's ocean is so large, and the British population is only more than 30 million. In this case, other countries also have the right to share the world's ocean colonies." I think the content of the letter sent by William IV is indeed good. Alexander I looked at him. In other words, the Russian Empire stands on the side of the 3 countries this time. Gorchakov nodded and affirmed, "Your Majesty, the Russian Empire has been developing eastward on land, but its area is large but its population cannot keep up, and its living environment is harsh. The transaction between Kalimantan Island and the Alaska Peninsula reminds me that instead of being picked and chosen by Britain alone, it is better to support the 3 countries to fight against Britain and follow these Western European maritime powers to sail to the 2 southern oceans, so that the Russian Empire can take some territory in the Indian Ocean and the southern Pacific Ocean with its own hands." Alexander I remained silent about this. On April 29, the Russian Empire actually chose to support the position of the Netherlands, France and Prussia, and believed that Belgium was too small and too large to manage. In this case, it was believed that dispersing some provinces was a good choice to abandon the car and save the general, and it could also better serve the people. The Russian Empire Foreign Minister Gorchakov said that Belgium should not suppress those who disagreed, and was moved by the brave actions of those local governments. Finally, Gartrakov said that at the invitation of the Dutch Foreign Minister Husbert van, he would visit Amsterdam from May 3 to May 8. He also mysteriously stated that the two countries will launch a series of cooperation, including the expansion of the capital operation and utilization of the two countries, the military training mechanism of the two countries, and the Russian Empire will continue to negotiate on the purchase of warships from the Netherlands. With the statements of various countries, the situation in Belgium is on the verge of breaking out. On April 30, witnesses said that the Dutch Ministry of Defense had sent a total of 5,000 people to station in the north of Antwerp province, Belgium. This army did not seem to be deployed before, but a new force transferred from Amsterdam. How fast the Netherlands was, and these troops were quickly deployed to the edge of the front line of the chaos as soon as they arrived. Perhaps the sadness of a small country with few people is that their destiny can never be truly controlled in their own hands. Regardless of whether they seek justice or not, this is a practical problem rather than a value problem. The international community mostly points to the poor attitude of the Belgian royal family and the cabinet towards the people, which has caused today's results. However, it recognizes the unreasonableness of major powers such as Britain interfering in Belgium's domestic affairs. I have to say that this is the sadness of small countries in the era of great power competition. P.S. Because it was just lost, this chapter was uploaded again. It was reviewed and lost after the ban was lifted at 2341. Please understand. In addition, Chapter 95 is also under review. Try to have fewer things that are easy to be reviewed later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Stanadang's Highlight Moment. Since 1862, the provinces of Belgium have been experiencing violent incidents due to the continuous losses of people caused by floods, resulting in hundreds of casualties among the people and police. This is an unprecedented challenge for Belgium. The entry of troops from the Netherlands and France to support the rebels has caused panic in the Belgian government. Belgium has a land area of more than 30,000 square kilometers. Now, after being occupied on 2 sides and 3 sides, only 40% of the area remains. The population is about 2.7 million, but with the 5 provinces leaving the management of Belgium, the population loss has reached 60%, leaving only 40%. The area is also only about 40%, especially the 3 French-speaking provinces in the south have left Belgium, and only Liege province is left. Because half of the territory in the east of the province has declared its allegiance to Prussia, only half of the province is left in the end. There are 2 provinces in the northern Dutch-speaking area. Although they are small in area, their population accounts for 30% of Belgium, and nearly 900,000 people are directly under the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. As a result, the Netherlands has become a country with a population of 7 million. Since the Kingdom of Belgium separated from the Kingdom of Belgium in 1830 and established itself as a kingdom, Leopold I has been the king of the Kingdom of Belgium for 32 years. Even though he has recently intended to cultivate his son, Crown Prince Leopold, and slowly delegate power to him, he still insists on personally controlling military power and diplomatic affairs. However, as the floods aroused the anger of the people, he arrogantly ignored them. In order to restore peace, Leopold I even claimed that these people were funded by external forces. On the other hand, he even wanted to disband many local governments and manage the country in a direct management model. Since the people's anger was mostly directed at Prime Minister Orban in front of the stage, and even with inaction, it slowly turned to the Leopold family. Leopold I became nervous, so he started to show off at that time, intending to win back public opinion, but it was too late at this time. In the end, he was killed by the people. After Leopold I ascended the throne, he had not yet started to warm up his position. Now, there was a sharp problem that 5 provinces almost simultaneously withdrew from Belgium, and the 3 surrounding powers were all beneficiaries. Although the British Empire supported Belgium, it was too late to save the nearby fire. Belgium finally compromised. Especially when both the Renaissance and the Russian Empire chose to support the Netherlands, he knew that he was powerless to save the situation. On May 5, 1862, Leopold I began to send envoys to seek a compromise foreign policy from the 3 countries, expressing conditional agreement that the eastern part of the 5 provinces of Liege would withdraw from Belgium, on the condition that the three countries would no longer interfere in Belgian affairs. Although Britain did not agree at first, it had no choice but to do so when it saw that the Belgian protagonists had made concessions, so it could only promote negotiations. Finally, with the addition of the new Belgian King Leopold II, the French Prime Minister Olivier, the Prussian Prime Minister Bismarck, the Dutch Prime Minister Thorbecke, the British Prime Minister Viscount Palmerston, and the new Belgian King and interim Prime Minister Leopold II, 5 people officially announced the conclusion of the Paris Five Peace Treaty in Paris on May 10, 1862, stipulating that the provinces of Hainaut, Namur, and Luxembourg in the Kingdom of Belgium became French territory, the eastern part of Liege province became Prussian territory, and the provinces of Antwerp and Limburg became Dutch territory. Belgium's current land area is West Flanders, Dutch, East Flanders, Dutch, Flemish Brabant, Dutch, Walloon Brabant, French, Western Liege province, French, and Brussels capital region, Dutch-French bilingual mixture. The population structure is that the French population was originally about 40%, but now only 25%. Dutch has further reached 60%, and the rest are other languages or bilingual. In order to stabilize the domestic situation, Leopold II said that the Belgian election would continue and directly stated that he would not interfere with their campaign. However, compared with a previous situation, the advantage of Merlin was instantly turned into a strange reversal in the eyes of the people, and Joseph Beit almost shrank by 1/3, because the provinces that supported him were only the eastern part of Flemish Brabant and the western part of Liege. The only province left of the 4 provinces that Merlin had agreed to was Walloon-Brabant. As for Jules d'Arneton's original disadvantage, only West Flanders, East Flanders and Flemish Brabant competed with Joseph Beit for half each. As long as d'Arneton maintained the current basic support, he had already locked in the results of the general election on May 20 in advance, and the position of Prime Minister was already in his pocket. With the signing of the contract by the 5 countries, no one would have thought of this scene, but now it makes people feel weird. The winner, in addition to the French Empire, the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Prussia, the biggest winner turned out to be Jules d'Arneton. In fact, when everyone was still wondering whether the second most popular candidate, Merlin, had a chance to turn the tables, d'Arneton was not satisfied. He took the initiative and contacted Joseph Beit's campaign team privately. On May 15, they held a press conference together to announce that Joseph Beit would give up the election for the Belgian Prime Minister. In order to unite the Belgian Liberal Party and prevent the Catholic parties Merlin from taking advantage of the scattered votes and seizing the Liberal Party's ruling position, he fully supported Jules d'Arneton's candidacy for Prime Minister. D'Arneton strongly supported Joseph Beit's candidacy for the position of Senate President held on August 1. The two said they would work closely to maintain the stability of the Kingdom of Belgium and expressed their support for Leopold II's stable status as king. Leopold II also expressed his gratitude and congratulations. After the election results came out, a major national affairs meeting would be held. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the royal family had already chosen a side. Jules d'Arneton's election was a foregone conclusion. Merlin was powerless to save the situation. "My son, he is really getting better and better." In the royal palace of the Duchy of Luxembourg, the former king of the Netherlands, the current Grand Duke of Luxembourg, William III, looked towards the west. There, it seemed to be Amsterdam. He seemed to see the office where he used to sit, where his eldest son Hendrik sat. His Majesty William IV was now discussing the future development of the Netherlands with many Dutch ministers, and was also celebrating the recent successes of the Netherlands. However, his joy was only momentary. Although his son had only been on the throne for half a year, he was envious of his son's achievements, but this also reflected from the side that Hendrik was too outstanding, and the consequence of this would be jealousy. However, if one is not envied, he is a mediocre person. This can be taken to heart. However, the British Empire has suffered such a great loss this time. Given my temper towards Queen Victoria and those important ministers in London, those who participate in this event will definitely not reap the rewards. Only after Hendrik can withstand the wrath of Britain can it be confirmed that the Netherlands and he have truly formed a major trend. Otherwise, it will be in vain. However, he actually chose Sweden as his ally. Does he have any considerations? William II thought puzzledly, but he just didn't quite understand. He smiled bitterly and said, "And I heard that he is still pushing me to become the king of the Kingdom of Greece. This kid seems to be unable to bear to see me idle. He is such an unfilial little guy. However, I like him. P.S. The first volume of the Belgian Storm is over, and the next chapter of the second volume begins. Chapter 97, When you come to the Netherlands, you are Dutch? In the late 18th century, London was already the world's most important financial center. It integrated the capital nature of Amsterdam and the industrial characteristics of Paris. In the combined operation of capital and industry, it stood at the most comprehensive and forefront of Europe. In particular, the world's first World Expo was held in 1851, with 8 million visitors. Visitors from the British Isles and other countries were shocked. Through word of mouth, London has become the most prosperous city in the world. Even after the threat of Napoleon I, London still stood firm and continued to maintain the process of becoming the world's first industrialized city. The resources shipped back and the industrial products shipped out have occupied more than 30% of the world's industrial product market. Buckingham Palace. Your Majesty, what about that deal? Viscount Palmerston endured for a long time, and finally he reminded Queen Victoria. What deal? Queen Victoria was stunned, and then reacted. At the beginning, Viscount Palmerston and William IV were about the trade of colonies between the Netherlands and Britain. Although he was dissatisfied with him for taking the initiative and not discussing such a big thing with her, he made an agreement with the other party. But after all, she agreed afterwards, but at that time, it was changed to Queensland and the Northern Territory in exchange for the two Dutch colonies of West Kalimantan and East Kalimantan. Now that our two countries have lost a good impression of the Netherlands because of the Belgium incident, the Prime Minister thinks that the transaction at this time will be inconsistent. Victoria expressed doubts about this. Your Majesty, we all underestimated the Netherlands. From the three-nation alliance against Belgium and South Africa, the Netherlands seems to be marginalized and puts the French Empire first in everything. However, if we combine our bet with William IV, we know that France does not know about this. Obviously, after this series of events, the Netherlands has been calculating step by step with a rhythm, binding the French Empire and the Kingdom of Prussia to move forward at the pace set by itself. Such ability has obviously reached the requirements of the British Empire for partners. Viscount Palmerston said this, looking at Queen Victoria, and said worriedly, the British Empire currently has no trustworthy, sincere and important friends on the European continent, because the big countries will be wary of us. Queen Victoria's face was gloomy. The situation in Europe is becoming more and more confusing. In the past, when the British Empire gently threw a bone down, everyone would jump up and scramble for the bone that was about to fall from the sky, just like the expected puppies. But now, a small Belgium has united all countries to fight against the majesty of the British Empire. This was very incredible in the past. Thinking of the cause of death of her uncle Leopold I, she was full of doubts. The Netherlands? Or France? And now that the British Empire has formed an alliance with the Netherlands, France and Prussia, it has discovered that the British Isles are like a mosquito net that is separated by a mosquito net. It is satisfied to see through the European continent outside the net. This made her feel powerless, and at the same time, she also knew that Great Britain, where the British Isles are located, has encountered a situation of unity. Viscount Palmerston saw that his words caused the Queen's expression to change color, so he immediately said, as I mentioned a few months ago, only the Netherlands, their area in Europe is destined to be difficult to threaten us, and the biggest benefit that can be obtained by making friends with them is that they will become our sea defense line near our edge on the European continent without us having to invest. If we reach a deal, the main thing is that we can do this in the Dutch-Prussian-French alliance. Although we cannot see the effect immediately, we can plant a seed of doubt. Hearing this, the Queen's face relaxed. The deal can be completed, but... She raised her head, with a chill in her majestic expression, and said coldly, but wanting Canada is wishful thinking. The Viscount actually thinks he is very optimistic about him. Well, I will take a serious look at what is worthy of the Viscount's optimism and weigh him again to see how much he weighs. What does the Queen mean? Viscount Palmerston asked with a wry smile. Before coming to Buckingham Palace from 10 Downing Street, he had guessed that this deal was not so easy to reach. The Queen's current statement was obviously not much different from what he thought. Since you think highly of him, Viscount, why not choose Australia? Queen Victoria hesitated, then pretended to be generous and said, Queensland, Northern Territory, if William IV is willing to trade South Kalimantan, we can trade Western Australia. Alexander II is too ambitious, and we really need to reduce the scope of Tsarist Russia to the smallest space. What if he doesn't agree to trade South Kalimantan? The Queen sneered again. If he doesn't agree, it proves that he has no ambition for the Australian continent. If he agrees, it proves that this person has ambition for the Australian continent. Then, our Indian DFU fleet in the Indian subcontinent and the Australian fleet stationed in Sydney, two of the 5 major fleets of the British Empire, will let the young King of the Netherlands know that the status of the British Empire as the maritime hegemon cannot be challenged. This time, Viscount Palmerston did not ask any more questions. Because in fact, Canada was also a move by him to test the Netherlands. It was impossible for him to agree to it. After all, Canada is too close to the British Isles. If the French Empire attacks London from the other side of the English Channel, and the Netherlands, which has obtained part of Canada's territory, attacks the British Isles from the west, then it will be attacked from both sides. The most terrible thing is that if the United States joins in because it hates Britain's support for the South, then the British Isles may really be surrounded by people like dumplings and attacked from all sides. As long as the Suez Canal in the Mediterranean is blocked, then Britain will be cut like sausages, and the Canadian fleet, the North Sea Fleet, the Home Fleet, the Indian Fleet and the Australian Fleet will be swallowed up and eliminated one by one. Therefore, Canada must not be lost, otherwise the British mainland will be unstable and the danger index will rise. On May 25, 1862, Buckingham Palace in London announced that the Netherlands and the British Empire had completed a territorial transaction. The Netherlands would exchange the Far East Kalimantan, East Kalimantan and South Kalimantan provinces for the British Empire's Queensland and Northern Territory, and the part of Western Australia north of the Great Sandy Desert. William I of Prussia said, "That is the business of other countries and the right of national autonomy. We have no right to interfere with the practices of the Netherlands and Britain." Napoleon III of France was silent at first, then said stiffly, "I think France can actually be a good trading partner and can trade with various countries. Unfortunately, we haven't found a trading partner yet." Alexander of the Russian Empire said with a relaxed face, "We will not interfere in other people's transactions. After all, we were doing the same thing last month." Karl XVI of Sweden in Northern Europe smiled and said, "The Netherlands has invited Sweden to participate in the development of mineral resources in the East Indies. Our skilled miners are already eager to do so. As for Spain and Portugal, 2 countries with territories in the Far East, they are sharpening their knives. Obviously, they are following the frequent actions of the Netherlands and are also thinking about trading with overseas colonies in exchange for much-needed benefits." Amsterdam. The Privy Council meeting held once a week was held again in the Royal Palace of the Netherlands. William IV looked around at the people in front of him with deep eyes, and all of them were staring at him with hope. "Your Majesty, the British are really too defensive. It seems that it will be twice as difficult for us to take over the southern part of Western Australia," said Husband with some regret. Thorbecke smiled and said, "You should be content. We have almost divided Western Australia into 2 halves, north and south. As for the overall situation, we now have northwestern Australia plus Northern Territory plus Queensland equals the northern part of the Australian continent. The British still occupy the southern part. We are equivalent to dividing the north and south with the British. Don't forget that we have the East Indies and New Guinea Islands. The sea between the northern Australian continent and the East Indies has become our inland sea." "Not bad," sighed William IV. "From now on, we can truly launch the second homeland plan in the Far East. The success or failure of its development will determine whether the Netherlands can achieve the status of a top power in the world in the future. Your Majesty, will Sweden also be interested in the Far East?" Education Minister Rudbels asked worriedly. "No matter who his or what his ambitions are," William IV said confidently, "as long as he comes to Dutch territory, he is a Dutchman." He asked Bill Charley, the Director of Royal Intelligence, "By the way, what do you think of the Danish royal family?" Chapter 98. Worried Denmark. Denmark is in a bad situation now. Prussia has already infiltrated Schleswig and Holstein. In particular, Prussian Prime Minister Bismarck has used the psychology of many people in the German Confederation to oppose Denmark's rule over Holstein to incite national confrontation, which has become a certain trend. Thorbecke said, "Schleswig and Holstein are located between Denmark and the Elbe River, bordering the North Sea and the Baltic Sea on the Atlantic Ocean. They have a very important economic and strategic position. The Kingdom of Prussia in the German Confederation has gradually encroached on the territory of Hanover and has been connected to the edge of the Jutland Peninsula. As the Junker landlords and bourgeoisie in the Kingdom of Prussia have long coveted this place, these were originally 2 small principalities, and they have long been subordinate to the king. Yes, they only belong to the king, not the kingdom, and these two small principalities have their own round of administrative agencies and are unwilling to merge with Denmark. William IV remembered that the Vienna Conference in 1815 affirmed the status of the two principalities and even incorporated the small principality of Lauenburg into the territory of the Danish king. However, it is precisely because of this that Denmark is hated by many people in the German Confederation, because in Holstein and Lauenburg, the majority of the population is ethnically from the German Confederation. They have always been part of the Holy Roman Empire. According to the provisions of the Vienna Conference, they are also members of the German Confederation. The Danish king, as the ruler of Holstein, is naturally recognized as a member of the German Confederation. However, the Kingdom of Denmark is not. However, on the contrary, in Schleswig, the majority of residents are Danes. Although the southern part of this principality, like Holstein, was assimilated by the German Confederation members in Prussia, Schleswig is not a member of the German Confederation, it is just a fief of Denmark. Originally, the current king of Denmark, Frederick VI, also agreed to the plan of Holstein joining the German Confederation and Schleswig joining Denmark completely. However, the Treaty of Ribe in 1460 stipulated that Schleswig and Holstein would never be separated, which made the situation more complicated. Since the late 1840s, Denmark has started a national movement to strive for the complete incorporation of the two principalities into Denmark. This tendency has caused a strong response in the German Confederation. Resisting the invasion of Denmark has even become the common voice and battle horn of the entire German Confederation. In the end, the war broke out. The war lasted from 1848 to 1851. After 3 years of fighting, the self-reliance activities of Schleswig and Holstein failed. These people were of German descent. They all hoped to incorporate Denmark into the jurisdiction of the members of the German Confederation. The earliest population in these two places was the Kingdom of Prussia and the Austrian Empire. In addition, the German Confederation countries, especially Prussia, were very dissatisfied with Prussia's collection of shipping fees through the Danish Strait between the Baltic Sea and the Behei Sea. In order to avoid this fee, Prussia planned to build the Kiel Canal. Especially Prussia wanted to break the strategy of going out to the Atlantic Ocean and passing through Denmark's supervision, but Denmark ruled Holstein, so this canal could not be built, and Prussia was firmly locked in the Baltic Sea. This naturally made it difficult for the strategic position of the Kingdom of Prussia to affect places outside the Baltic Sea. Especially when watching other countries colonize everywhere in the Atlantic Ocean, people including William were anxious, afraid that if they went too late, the remaining colonies in the world would be gone. Force the two apart? On the surface, this is a reasonable method, but in fact, both sides are not very satisfied with the result. Besides, Schleswig and Holstein have always been united in history. Now calling them two countries will make everyone feel very awkward. As a result, Denmark's rule began to be frequently interfered with by the German Confederation in the affairs of Schleswig and Holstein, which made Denmark even more furious. No one here would doubt that the German Confederation had no ambition to annex Schleswig. This was a well-known fact. Hesbert von hesitated, and finally, after looking at Thorbecke, he said with a stiff upper lip, "Your Majesty, although you have a close relationship with the family of Crown Prince Christian of the Danish royal family, Denmark's support for Schleswig has now decreased." Why has it decreased? The speaker was the Minister of War, Peter Darren. Do I look like someone who can't tell the difference between the important and the unimportant? William IV glared at Hesbet unhappily, then explained to Peter de Jong, since 1860, Schleswig-Holstein has once again become a hot topic of international debate, but this time Denmark has received less support than last time. The Crimean War weakened the national strength of the Russian Empire, making Alexander no longer dare to do whatever he wants and offend the entire German Confederation, including Austria and Prussia. Napoleon III of the French Empire was ready to stop supporting Denmark's rule over the region, because he wanted to use this to exchange for concessions and exchanges of interests with the German Confederation and other places. Because Prince Albert was from Saxe-Gotha-Coburg of the German Confederation, and Queen Victoria's mother was also from Coburg, Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert both agreed with the German Confederation's position. However, British officials eased their hometown emotions, believing that the German Confederation's navy's massive expansion in the Baltic Sea had threatened the British Empire's maritime hegemony. Although Queen Victoria and her husband Prince Albert agreed with Germany's position, British officials tried to ease their emotions, believing that the expansion of the German Navy in the Baltic Sea threatened Britain's maritime hegemony. Almost all the leaders of the Tory and Whig parties held this opinion. In this case, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert could only stop insisting, so the result was that the British Empire supported Denmark, but now they are just looking for an excuse. It is said that the British Empire's cabinet and nobles intend to let Prince of Wales and Prince Edward marry Princess Alexandra, the eldest daughter of Crown Prince Christian of the Kingdom of Denmark, or to let Princess Alice or Princess Helena marry his eldest son, Prince Frederick. In this way, the British Empire has an excuse to intervene in the Danish and German Confederation. This is also the reason why Queen Victoria asked her eldest daughter, Princess Victoria, who married to Prussia as the Crown Princess, to match Prince Edward with Alexandra some time ago. When explaining this, William IV felt the strange looks around him, and suddenly understood what these animals were thinking, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Alexandra, you girl have caused me so much trouble." It turned out that during the European Royal Family Belief Conference some time ago, everyone present knew one thing, that is, the princess actually asked for an audience with William IV, and the time of the meeting was during the meeting of the Dutch Privy Council, so they all knew about it. Although he explained that this was his junior sister, who also followed Andersen to learn to write fairy tales, the response he got was that whoever believed it was a fool. Chapter 99 Rifle and Bayonet. Amsterdam. How is the military training going recently? William IV asked Mark Rude, the Chief of the General Staff of the Army and Navy, changing the subject. "We win the respect of the world with the sharpness of our swords, not the sharpness of our thoughts." This is the catchphrase of the Chief of the General Staff Mark Rude. He is an extremely serious soldier. After graduating from Leiden University at the age of 22, he actually took the diploma of this highest institution in the Netherlands to study at the University of Paris. After graduating with honors at the age of 24, he went to Oxford University for further studies for 2 years. At the age of 26, he returned to his country after getting the certificate. Just when everyone who knew him was full of longing for his future and thought that he would choose a decent and lucrative job, he was shocked and chose to join the army. He enlisted as an ordinary person and received military training. That year was 1839, because that year the Netherlands was forced to recognize Belgium's independence. He joined the army because he felt humiliated because of his strong patriotism. With his tenacious attitude and broad professional knowledge, he quickly got promoted, a small promotion every 2 years and a big promotion every 5 years. Now he has been in the army for 23 years and has climbed to the current position of the top figure in the Dutch army. 23 years of army career has created his iron will. Your Majesty, therefore, the Netherlands should vigorously develop military weapons and promote military reforms. In particular, the Army and Navy need to innovate technology simultaneously. Look at the British Empire, which can dominate several oceans and establish countless colonies because of its navy. The former glory of our Netherlands fell under their sharp naval guns. Therefore, I strongly support the vigorous development of a superior navy in the East Indies. The mainland should also increase naval construction, simultaneously attract the attention of the British, and increase cooperation with Sweden to disperse the concerns of various countries. After he complained, he said, "The army has manufactured semi-automatic rifles and matching bayonets in accordance with the craftsmanship and technology provided by Your Majesty, and has begun training. The current number of people trained is in units of 10,000, and they take turns on the New Guinea Peninsula. If an army can be formed in 3 months, then soon we can complete the transformation of the 2 armies over there. By then, I am afraid that the title of France's first elite army can be transferred." At the same time, in the north, at the residence of Crown Prince Christian, the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Denmark. "Father, are you worried that the German Confederation will oppose your succession to the throne of the Danish king?" Prince Frederick asked Crown Prince Christian. In addition to them, there was also Christian's friend and advisor Andersen. Her other identity was a famous fairy tale master in Europe. The two had been close friends for decades. At this time, a young woman happened to pass by outside the room. To be precise, she was about to call a few people to have lunch, but she was attracted by the topic they had just talked about. So she retracted her knock on her father's office door, tilted her ears, and listened attentively. She was the eldest daughter of Crown Prince Christian, Princess Alexandra of Denmark, who had just returned from the Netherlands not long ago. I heard another voice coming from the room, But this time, it was her teacher, Anderson, who sighed and spoke slowly. Prince Christian, you and I have known each other for many years. To be honest, I think the current situation of Denmark is more precarious than you and I thought at the beginning. Prussia has tested our bottom line time and time again. Holstein originally thought that after the concessions of Our Majesty Frederick I would be satisfied by Prussia, he could choose to be humble. But I underestimated Bismarck's ambition and overestimated Denmark's weight. With our indifference and dissatisfaction with Sweden after the First Schleswig War in 1848, the relationship between the two countries has become very bad. Although Frederick I has been trying to repair it in recent years, the two countries are no longer close, and the Nordic alliance can be put to rest. Look at how Sweden now prefers to sign a military and economic alliance with the Netherlands, rather than seeking something far away. It is conceivable that Denmark's position in Swedish diplomacy is no longer the most important position in Sweden. Netherlands? When Alexandra heard the word Netherlands, she was shocked. She thought of her recent crazy behavior in the Netherlands. My God, as a member of the royal family who had been trained, she actually asked for a private meeting with William in the Netherlands. When she thought of herself appearing outside the Privy Council and seeing the strange eyes of the Dutch ministers coming out, it was not a big deal at the time, but now her face was hot when she recalled it. What a shame. Finally, a familiar voice came from the room. Her father, Crown Prince Christian, spoke. Alice, Your Majesty, and I understand this, but Sweden has always been on guard against our influence in Norway. Norway has been confirmed to be in the hands of Denmark and Sweden since 1815. It has been nearly 50 years. Sweden's assimilation policy has failed so much that it has made Norway determined to be independent. They suspect that it is us, Denmark, who support them. Therefore, they always maintain cooperation and vigilance at the same time. This is why it is difficult for us to reach the level of cooperation between Sweden and the Netherlands. There was a silence in the room. So they are talking about the recent Copenhagen Daily about the alliance between Sweden and the Netherlands. Alexandra breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that they were talking about something, especially about the Netherlands. Unexpectedly, just as she breathed a sigh of relief, a piece of news concerning her came out of the room, which made her lose her mind for a moment. The Netherlands has recently completed various beautiful actions in Western Europe quickly, and even His Majesty Frederick I agrees with it. Frederick, you have to look carefully. His Majesty William IV is only 3 years older than you, but now he is in charge of a country and is not inferior to the powerful politicians of the old powers. He has even gained benefits many times and has stolen the limelight for the Netherlands. By the way, what do you think of your marriage with your sister? Marriage? They actually talked about her marriage? Although she was born in a royal family and knew the freedom of marriage had been automatically locked in a box, when she heard her father's tone, asking about her eldest brother Frederick's opinion instead of hers, her heart was filled with loss. Father, I think we should ask Alexandra's opinion. Prince, indeed, you should understand Alexandra better than I do. She looks strong on the outside, but she is very emotional on the inside. If her marriage is confirmed without any words, she might develop a rebellious mentality. Anderson's words made Alexandra stunned. It seemed that this teacher knew her personality very well. This is not the Russian Empire. Members of the royal family can freely choose whether to agree or not to marriages assigned by the royal family and can take the initiative in their own marriages. However, this is Western Europe. Forget it, maybe you are right, I will ask the child. Hearing this, Alexandra walked away briskly with a calm mood, because she heard footsteps coming closer and closer. P.S. The second chapter is here, no less than 10,000 words tomorrow, and it is not yet determined whether it will be divided into 3 or 4 chapters. Thank you for your recent support. Chapter 100 Weapon Parts Supplier? Upon hearing this, William IV said, semi-automatic rifles are most suitable for training in the East Indies. It is one of our army's confidential weapons and must be kept secret without permission. Mark Rudd naturally agreed, because this is a groundbreaking and powerful product. What about the Mauser rifle? William IV paused and said, we can start deploying it in our home country. By the way, how about this? The first appearance of the Mauser rifle can be chosen in Africa, which is a battlefield where we can let go. After all, those natives are good live targets. What is the current manufacturing progress? 3,000 rifles per month in the home country, with 100 ammunition for each rifle. The number in the East Indies is about 2,000, and the factory is in Jakarta. Mark Rudd exclaimed, Your Majesty's design has amazed everyone in the Dutch firearms research and development institutions. The Mauser rifle bolt is safe, simple, sturdy and reliable. For this reason, the people in the Firearms Bureau are almost becoming your admirers. This is natural. This is the classic work of the Mauser brothers in the future global light weapons market. I took it out nearly 5 years in advance, and it has been in active service for almost 10 years. I don't know if the Mauser brothers will have another breakthrough in the future. Brother, don't blame me, who told me to have a different position from you. 5,000 per month, that is, an average of 60,000 per year. The Netherlands currently has more than 120,000 regular troops and 30,000 reserve troops. In other words, if all these people are replaced with Mauser rifles, it will take 2.5 years. However, the Dutch army has just replaced 20% of the Mauser rifles, and it will take at least 2 years to replace them all with Mauser rifles. When William IV, who wanted to play toothpicks, thought that the Danish-Prussian War would start next year, how could he wait for 2 years? At that time, the Austro-Prussian War in 1866, the Second War of the Prussian Dynasty War, was even closer. This speed is too slow. The weapon manufacturing speed in East India must keep up with the mainland. Since the Second Mainland Plan is implemented, all the instruments and people must keep up, including the economy and weapons. The rifles and bayonets of the infantry were the most unique weapons in the previous life during the First World War, but they were not the most lethal weapons. Even the semi-automatic weapons that have just appeared in the Netherlands are also his weapons. In the link, the Netherlands must implement a half-generation strategy. What is a half-generation strategy? In fact, it is to learn from the practice of the United States later. The current military equipment of the United States must be half a generation more advanced than that of other countries. The strategic goal of research and development is half a generation more advanced. This is to make the opponent never keep up with the strategy of the Netherlands in terms of weapon performance, and to maintain a permanent advantage. For this reason, the Navy was originally backward, and now with the undisclosed amount on the Paradise Island in East India, a few years ago, the shipbuilding base in Amsterdam was directly transferred to the heavily guarded Paradise Island, and the second shipbuilding factory was implemented. Since it was a transfer rather than construction, it successfully entered the shipbuilding offensive production state in a short period of time. 5 steam ironclad ships have been launched. For this purpose, the Netherlands has invested more than 100 million Dutch guilders, £4 million, in the 5 years since 1857. This is nearly 1/4 of the Netherlands' annual military expenditure of £3 million. Most of this is used for the research and development of weapons and equipment and the construction of factories for supporting parts, accounting for half of the military expenditure. In World War I, the honor of the most lethal light weapon should be attributed to machine guns, and of course cannons. The Mauser rifle that has just been built is named the Dutch version of the Mauser 1862 rifle. At the beginning, he hesitated and wanted to choose the 7.62 mm caliber of the Tsarist Russian Mosin-Nagant rifle and the 6.5 mm caliber of the Romanian 1893 version of the Mannlicher rifle. Or he chose the same rifle caliber of 7.7 mm used by the British, but he thought that the 1903 version of the United States 7.62 mm was also good. In the end, he chose the caliber of the 1898 version of the German 7.92 mm, because it was the most famous and popular in other countries. However, in terms of the length of the body, he chose the most popular 1.25 meters, and the weight was also 4 kilograms. Rifles were the most common weapons in World War I, because countless factories in various countries were desperately rushing to increase production at that time, but the principles of the models used were actually very similar. All rifles were straight push type, equipped with a magazine that could be loaded with several bullets to ensure that bullets did not need to be frequently loaded. This is also a weapon that neither Europe nor the United States has now, so it is true that the Netherlands is number 1 in the world in this regard. The original world was not born until 1867, when the Mauser brothers' Mauser rifle was born. This Mauser-designed, rotary bolt, breech loading, single-shot rifle was adopted as the standard service rifle of the German Empire when the German Empire was founded in 1871. It became the most promoted light weapon of the German Empire and was named the 1871 Mauser rifle. Minister of Industry Wim Coates said at this time, "Your Majesty, semi-automatic rifles and steam battleships have begun to be built. Especially with the development of large-scale supporting facilities, the semi-automatic rifle factory has been established in Jakarta, employing more than 1,000 people. In addition, the three originally desolate villages of Babo, Madiun and Bintuni on the coast of Birabe on the Paradise Peninsula have become a large city with the development of more than 6 years and the migration of nearly 200,000 Dutch people. In the first 4 months of this year, among the 80,000 local Dutch people who migrated, 50,000 chose to move to Wigo Island in the north of the Paradise Peninsula, with 10,000 people, Sulong Town with 20,000 people, and Fakfak Town in the south of the Paradise Peninsula with 20,000 people. Most of the remaining 30,000 people are scattered in other islands including Jakarta. Oh, why are they all willing to move to New Guinea, which is more desolate than Jakarta? Don't they all like to go to prosperous places? Why do these immigrants like to go to remote places? Are they stupid? At this time, Interior Minister General said bitterly, "Your Majesty, this is because the subsidies this time are too much, especially in the Paradise Peninsula, where the subsidies are 1/3 higher than other places." What? William IV looked at General in surprise, then at Wimcote, and shouted with a dark face, "Why treat them differently?" Suddenly the air seemed to become colder, but the summer could not be stopped. Wimcote gave the answer with a wry smile, "This is naturally not arranged by us, but a trick from the Dutch arms dealers." Seeing that William IV was still dissatisfied, he said bitterly, "At present, the domestic weapons market has been divided by His Majesty to prevent a leakage of weapon secrets. As the government established a large-scale naval base on the Paradise Peninsula, many weapons parts suppliers chose to set up factories in the northern part of the Paradise Peninsula. The population there is sparse, so the weapons parts suppliers have no choice but to increase subsidies and guarantee stable jobs to increase the willingness to immigrate. The world has changed. The William Weapons Group he founded has become the largest weapon supplier in the Netherlands, including the Navy and even the Army, but around it, there are also a large number of OEM factories and parts suppliers. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.